Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. There are a number of places you could be, but being in here in the cool is better than being outside. So thank you for being here with us this evening. And we will now open our meeting. 1.1, call to order. And I've done that already. Again, welcome again. 1.2, Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. And we're going to ask our Director of Youth Services, Ray Culberson, to lead us into the pledge.
Yes, ma'am. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Culberson. 1.3, the adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopted the agenda. Let's vote, please. Thank you. Session 2, student achievement. So Dr. Volkemer.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. As you have probably already surmised, Dr. Marsden is not with us this evening. He's taking some well-earned rest and relaxation home, doing some projects, as I understand it. So I'll be happy to fill in this evening. We have our student achievement presentation, and as you know, board, that you've asked for on the first board meeting of each month to have one of our top 10 KPIs presented to you so that we can make sure those remain a focus. And so tonight, Dr. Menares and members of her team are going to lead us through a presentation on KPI related to attendance. So let's welcome them. Dr. Menares.
Thank you, Dr. Volkemer. Good evening, board. It's very good to see all of you.
Good
Happy
evening.
summer. So tonight I am here, yes, with a dynamic team from Youth Services. We have Mr. Culberson, who appreciates the team that he has, and he likes to manage his people up. And so he has both Suzanne Hazen and Brenda Chow, who will be sharing the work that's been going on with Youth Services. And then I'll go over the data. So we'll go ahead and get started. Oh, did I turn it on? I did. There we go. All right, so we have 3 outcomes for this evening. We are going to review our 2016-17 attendance data. We're going to look specifically at the average daily attendance, or commonly known as ADA, and our chronically absent students. We're going to share the work that has actually this is work that's been going on, but we're going to share the attendance improvement campaign that Youth Services has started, including early prevention and intervention strategies, and then share our next steps. I want to remind the board that ADA is currently our KPI, but when we get to the state accountability, it is chronic absenteeism that the state looks at. So that is why we look at both pieces in San Bernardino. So here is a slide on ADA. Now, there is a slight change in the way that we're looking at annual daily attendance in San Bernardino. In the past, we've always looked at it from the beginning of the school year till the very end, and we would do the entire school year. But our funding is actually funded off of the 8th month, or commonly called P2. And so we are going to be looking at ADA are we missing something? Are we good? Okay, so we will be looking at ADA up to P2. So that's the 8th month of school. That's in March. So it's from the first day of school through the 8th month. Again, it's called P2. And the reason we're choosing to look at our annual daily attendance that way is because that is how we're funded from the state. And so when we look at our ADA, we can see that we had a slight decrease by 0.2 from the previous years. We can also see that for the most part, our attendance, our average daily attendance has been about the same over the last 5 years, and our KPI goal is 97. And so we want you to know, board, also when you look at this data set, who is included in it. And it includes all of our students sitting in general education settings, all of our special ed students, and our continuation high school students. There are a few students that are not included in here, but they're not more than a couple of thousand, and so it doesn't impact the ADA that much. This is the primary number of our students in our district. We are not pleased that there is a decrease, and so you will see through the presentation that we have a really aggressive plan on how to turn this around over the next few years. We were able to pull some comparable data and to see, so how do we compare to our local districts and how do we compare as a state? And so you see in the red box, that's all 2015-16 data. And the reason we're showing that is right now, that's the only thing we can get our hands on because it is so early in the finalizing of 16-17. But if we take a look at how San Bernardino did last school year and compare ourselves to similar like districts, we can see that most of us are pretty close to each other. Most of us are in that 95% ADA range. We see that Corona Norco is at 96, and with some direction from Dr. Flores, we've already talked to Corona Norco, and that's part of our next steps in our incentive program. You can also see on there that in comparison to the state, I want to make sure the state one is up there. Is it there? My eyes are going. We're actually a little bit higher than our state average, our state ADA. But we're not okay with that because 95% still means we have 5% of our students that are not attending school. And when they're not attending school, they're not achieving the instructional teaching that we want for them. And so we're going to continue to grow that. And so that's what this slide is showing. And you know, we've heard Dr. Marsden say we want to be the best at getting better, and we're committed to that, especially when it comes to attendance. We can look at our ADA another way, and we can see that by grade span, again, overall, we've had that slight decrease in all grade level spans. And again, we'll keep working on that. Just to want to remind the board that this data, again, same group of students, so we're looking at general ed, special education, and continuation high school students. And one of our key strategies when we start talking with our families and our principals is to focus on the amount of instructional time lost when students are not at school. Rather than talking about it being an excused or unexcused absence, it really doesn't matter anymore, because if a student isn't in school, then they don't have the opportunity to learn what's going on. And that is very much a shift from where we've been in the past. And that's a policy shift, if you will, that's been going on for years, and we need to focus more on that.
Okay.
Dr. Flores.
Just in terms of the decrease, I know that our, do we get credit when the kids come on Saturday for their recovery classes?
We can have an ADA recovery, and so, yes, we're going to be looking at that. We don't currently have that in place, but we will be looking at that.
And then I was thinking also, you know, if, what is the leeway in terms of time for our kids? I'm exposing this right now, in terms of
That's
recovering,
crazy.
instructional
Said the same thing.
or other times. I'm just
Right,
asking that for later. Okay.
exactly. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Rogers. Afterwards, Mr. Tillman?
I missed the part you said this includes,
The group of students it includes?
yeah.
So all of the ADA, the students that are included in there are general education students, all of our special education students, and students at our continuation high schools.
So I guess,
So the ones
so
who
who's
are-
not included, yeah.
So who's not included in that are students who are in our CalSafe program, so that's a very small number. It's a very small number. And they're included, they sit in many of our general education classrooms, so it's a little bit, they're not so much to be concerned about. It also doesn't include independent study students. It doesn't include home and hospital students, students at our community day school, and then students who are at our non-public schools. So it's less than 2,000 students we're talking about.
And
Does that answer your question, Mr. Tillman?
Yes.
Okay.
Dr. Hill, just for clarity, when you said the sample was taken, was it for just a month, or for how many days did we take the sample, or was it one day?
I'm not, sample?
For the daily attendance.
Oh, no, that's
The
data. So, thank you.
Yeah.
So P2 is a
Right.
collection of the data from the start of the school year until the end of the 8th month.
Right, that's, okay, just for clarity. Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
I was correct in that, Ms. Christopoulos? Okay.
Okay, and Ms. Medina?
Yes, I wanted to find out, when you look at page 4 for the comparison, for the comparables,
Yes.
how did we compare with the other districts that had also in previous years? So if maybe there was a trend even for them, that it was a decrease or there was an increase? I'm just curious to see if maybe it's not just our district that are seeing, maybe students are moving, families are moving, or a decrease of students that are entering elementary school or kindergarten, and that's creating that trend. So was there a way for you guys to look at if they've had similar or
We
not so
can.
similar?
We can look at that data, and what I can say, I think I actually have it right here, or did I leave it there, that as a state, we're trending with our ADA is dropping statewide.
Okay.
I think I left it up there, but
Yeah,
we
it
can
would-
get that.
It would be good just to see if there was other districts that are also struggling the same way.
Yes, absolutely, we can get
Okay.
that for you.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so again, that takes us through our ADA. Now, ADA is different than chronic absenteeism, right? So ADA counts actual students sitting in the seats, and then that's how we get our funding. It's not, I want to remind the board, this is not the accountability system, this is not the data set that the state will be using when they're looking at our attendance. The state will be using chronic absenteeism, okay? So, yes, right. So we want to look at both. They cross-section with each other, right? One doesn't happen without the other. Our ADA is very important to our funding, and our chronic absenteeism has to do with the idea of students missing 10% or more of their school year. And remember, and this is where the big shift in thinking needs to be stated, reiterated, and stated multiple times, that it is, excused and unexcused absences. So gone are those days where you can call and say, my daughter was sick, or they have a doctor's appointment, or they have a dentist appointment. Okay, they're excused, but it still counts into them being chronically absent, or potentially. That's a very different. And so we have to really help our schools, our community partners to hear and see that difference, which has implications for some of the work that our staff does. And so we'll get to that as well.
Dr. Hill?
So,
Ms.
So,
Bronco.
so my question before you move to the chronic, so just to be clear again, because the parents ask this question all the time, you just addressed ADA, which means if the child, at what point in time do we not get funding? If a student came to school, I don't know, an hour late or whatnot, what happens as far as our ADA?
okay.
Because could parents do ask this
That's a
question?
really great
And
question.
Yeah, if
Okay,
a student
explain it.
shows up at school, we get funding for that day.
I'm sorry, Mike was distracting me.
I'm sorry. If a student shows up to school, even for a short amount of time, we receive funding
Okay,
for the
so,
student for that day. yes.
okay, that's good.
We receive funding, but if they are especially if it's a secondary student, they may be missing class.
Right.
And then that counts into chronic absenteeism.
That's the second part, you're going to go over that coming up, but I
So-
wanted to be straight on
Yes.
this. When they get there, there's no cutoff where we say, okay, we're not going to receive the funding because they came to school half-day or went to the doctor or was pulled out and left.
Right.
Okay.
Now, we're not saying we want students at school when they're not feeling well.
Right,
Right? It's just
absolutely.
we want to understand how the different pieces work. And if there is a student who consistently is missing school, we want to find out what that need is, and we want to help the family to better match up the educational program.
Okay, that's on the chronic side, okay, gotcha. Thank
The other issue deals with health and welfare.
Yes.
And that's chronic asthma
Yes,
that our kids have,
right.
which is very high. And so I wonder if, I have no idea how many kids have asthma and how many days they miss, but it's high. It's very high.
Right, and we actually do have that data on the chronic asthma. I don't have it with me, but we have been looking at that. And so, again, that's an example of, so if a student is asthmatic and misses a lot of school, what educational program would best benefit that student? Because we don't want them falling behind because of their illness, right? So is it home hospital? Is it an independent study? Is there something else that we need to do? And that's where our case management really comes in.
Dr. Wyatt, I'm sorry, one more.
That's okay?
Thank you, Madam President. Quick question, it's either for you, Dr. Menares, or Ms. Christakos. On the secondary attendance, if the students were there for 7 periods and they missed 2, do we get a partial apportionment or full apportionment?
Yeah, and again, that's a business services.
You know, I'll verify, but I believe we get the full apportionment, but they still will go against
As-
the chronic absenteeism for specific classes. So I believe now I know it's different in independent study classes, depending on the work they turn in, so there's different rules. And we can provide you with a BC on all of the different programs and how they're funded.
On independent study, if we're a weekly, biweekly, or monthly attendance would be nice to know as well.
So it's based on the work completed.
We're completed.
Yeah, so the work has to be completed, and the auditors review that work to ensure that it matches with what they're saying is attendance.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so chronic absenteeism. So when we presented attendance at the board, I think it was back in November, October, I don't know, it was sometime in fall, we shared this visual, and this is a visual we've shared with our principals, and we're going to keep using it because it just is a nice example of why is it important for our students to be at school. And so again, the state defines chronic absence as missing 10% or more of the school year. So if you're in school the whole time, that's 18 days or more. But keep in mind, we have students that come maybe in October, and then they leave in March, and they still are chronically absent during that time period. So it's their actual enrollment in the school year. You could still be 10% or more just during that period. When we get to some other slides, that data is important, and I'll remind you of that again because our numbers kind of look a little different for our enrollment. And when they're chronically absent, that means that they are excused or unexcused, they still have missed. They could have 18 excused days of school. They're still considered chronically absent. And we need to make sure that our schools are hearing that and understanding that, and that they're sharing that with our community. That's a very important piece.
Could you have just a minute for Mr. Gallo?
Yes, thank you. Rachel, for the chronic absenteeism, were the groups that you identified that were not included in the ADA included in the chronic absenteeism count?
We've added some more, and so thank you, and I'll clarify that when we get to
Okay,
the data.
great.
So yes, the data set looks a little bit different for our chronic.
Can I, Dr. Hill?
Mr. Tillman?
You say that when you talk to the schools, you make them aware that how important it is for the attendance and working on the chronic absenteeism, but who specifically at the school is supposed to take ownership of that?
So we have, that's a really good question. It's everybody, right? It's starting with the classroom teacher and making sure the attendance is being taken correctly and being taken frequently at the secondary, right, every class period. Then it is in the office, we have people who are our verifiers. Now, this is where there's a big change, right? Because we really don't need them verifying so much as we need them communicating with the families to say, oh, so your child was not here today. Why were they not here? And did you know X, Y, and Z? And changing the message, because the message has been for many years, they were absent because they had a doctor's note. Okay, they're excused. That's no longer acceptable, right, when it comes to chronic. So we have to improve on our communication to our schools because it is a very different message than what they've heard in the past 20 years.
Yeah, I guess.
And then it's our principals.
Yeah, I guess the disconnect for me is when you say that, do we really have someone that's at the site that is having a discussion with the parents and the families and the guardians and trying to work with them to provide them resources to better the numbers? I mean, who at the district site is responsible for empowering these sites to make sure we have tools? You know, it gets back to the thing I always talk about. I mean, when I look at these numbers, you're going to turn the page and I look at the number for African Americans, it's just unbelievable. But when that's why I get so upset when I see money left over. We should be spending money on targeting these areas to say we've identified the sites where we have the biggest problems. When I look at specifically the African Americans, only because this chart shows 24%, which is far above any other group. The closest one is 17%. So there's something special going on there, so we should have some special programs that are targeting this group of students and finding ways to increase their attendance. But the part about everybody's responsible, a lot of times that means there's not nobody really thinking about it, nobody doing anything special. So I would just like for us to hear about some programs that work and incentives that work, and what are we doing to fix those problems?
Right, and we will get to that. And when I say everyone, we just want to make sure all of our systems are tight in all different areas, right? But we know that that the communication that has been shared with our families hasn't been around this case management concept. And that's what you're referring to, Mr. Tillman, that what is it, why are certain students not getting to school on a regular basis? And so we need to train, because every school has people to do it, but we haven't trained them to have this type of conversation. We've trained them to say excused or unexcused.
And let me say this, I think it needs to be talked about. I hear from African-American parents that they don't feel welcome when they go in the offices, and they feel a disconnect, and I mean, they just feel like it's not welcoming, you know what I mean?
Right.
And they don't feel like they have someone to talk to them, or someone that is talking to them about, issues and how do you make this better. So that's the part we have to change, and I think we have to make sure that we realize that it takes a specialized and a skill set. So at the sites where you have a number of students that have this chronically absent issue, we need to put some resources there to change that. But right now, just talking to the general staff is not going to fix the problem. That's my personal opinion. So I hope to hear about us doing some special stuff in the near future.
Most definitely. Ms. Rogers, do you have now, or did you have a question now? No? Okay. All right. Okay, so let's start looking at our chronically absent student. I want to make sure I captured all my notes to make sure. Okay, we're good. All right, so first of all, which groups are included here? So what's not included in chronically absent are students in our alternative programs and our specialized schools, and let me tell you what specialized means. So alternatives, we know San Andreas and Sierra. Specialized is Anderson, Carmack, Community Day School, Alternative Learning Center, and our virtual center, our virtual learning. And in total, that number of students is 1,598. So it's not a huge number at this moment, and we are making a conscious decision to focus on the larger number first and get our strategies tight and strong, and then dig deeper into these other settings. But we wanted to focus first on this large number of students who are chronically absent. And so you can see that again, in the chronic absenteeism, we had a slight increase at the district level, and then both elementary, middle, and high school, it's pretty much the same. We could see middle went up a little bit more. I want to point out to the board the students enrolled, and so you might be looking at it and saying, well, we don't have 53,000 students enrolled, and we are trying to, the state has not completely determined how they are going to, they haven't given guidance on how they are going to pull chronic absentee students. We know it's 10% or more, but what we don't know is all of the students that had been in the district during that school year, whether they stayed 2 months or the whole school year or 3 weeks, we don't know that yet. And so we're including all of the students that have been in our district during last school year, and whether they ended the year with us or not. So that's why it shows more, because some came and some went, but even of those, there were students who were chronically absent. Does that make sense? So that's why the number is a little bit higher. We're anxiously anticipating and waiting to get more guidance from the state exactly how they're going to be determining chronic, because we want our numbers to match what's going to be on the dashboard. Right. What I do want you to note is that, again, there's a lot of instructional time that's been lost, right? We can look at our elementary students, and we know that that's really a piece with our parents, helping our parents to understand how important every day is. And going to your point, Mr. Tillman, about being welcomed in the class, just coming into the office. Next week, you're going to hear about our family engagement strategic plan, where we're working on attacking some of those needs too. So you start to hear some of the work going on in student services is starting to overlap and weave together, because that's the way it works. We're working with students and families, right? Brenda and Suzanne have some examples of, so when a student is missing by grade level, what does that look like? And so they've talked through that. So Brenda.
Thank you, Dr. Monares. Good evening, board members and cabinet.
Good evening.
So, students with absences at the elementary level will be targeted as a preventive measure to educate parents as soon as possible on the importance of daily school attendance.
What it looks like at the high school level is we're conducting blitz meetings to inform the parents of the upcoming, how the district is going to be measuring chronic absenteeism, and the importance of letting them know that not only does it include excused absences, but it's a combination of both excused and unexcused absences. So I think it's important that we send out that message to the parents, not just district-wide level. And so that's what we're doing to make sure that families are aware.
So if you think about a first grade student and they have missed 2 days of school, maybe they tell mom that maybe they have some sniffles. We sometimes like to keep our younger ones home. Well, during those 2 days of school, that's when the teacher introduced the Control R sound. And so they never learned how to do Control R when they're learning phonics, right? And that's when the teacher introduced how to deconstruct 10, because base 10 is crucial to their overall academics. And so they come back 2 days later, and they've missed 2 critical skills to the early literacy and early numeracy. And when are they going to get that caught up, right? Because the teacher's moving on. And so our message to our parents is, unless there is a fever, unless there is something that must keep your child home, send them to school with some sniffles, because we don't want them missing out on Control R. We don't want them missing out on deconstructing numbers, right? Those are some examples of what happens when they miss 2 days of school, which doesn't sound like a lot. But when you think about a student who's chronically absent, that's 2 days a month. And 2 days a month is a lot of learning. It's a lot of learning. So here's the slide that some of you have already looked at, and we too are not pleased when we see these discrepancies in our groups of students. I want to make sure that we're all reading this the way that it was intended. So when looking at this slide, we can use our African American students as the example. What it means is that 24.4% of our African American students were chronically absent. Did I say that correctly, Dr. Wilkemer? Yes. If we look at our reclassified student, we can see that there was an increase there. 8.7% of students who were reclassified were considered chronically absent. Yes, Dr. Flores?
The raw numbers underneath the 2 bars, are those the number of kids represented in the 24.4?
No, that's the total.
No, I'm down below. Are those the raw numbers? 5,486 kids?
Yes.
Were chronically absent? African-American kids?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think that's right. That's saying the total population enrolled.
Oh, I apologize. I'm misunderstanding your question. Yes, the number of students that are counted into this data set.
You have 5,400 African Americans, and of those, 24% of those, so be like 1,300 of those are chronically absent.
Oh, number of students enrolled.
Right.
Right, but underneath, 53,245 were enrolled. Number of
Throughout
students
this
enrolled.
entire school year.
Right. And 24% of those 53,000 is not 5,000.
No, that's the number of,
That's what I'm asking, Danny.
That's the number of African American students that are part of that
that
53,000
make
total
up that,
students.
yes.
Oh, that make up,
Yes,
that
yes.
make up, okay, all right.
It's that data set.
Not the percentage amount.
This is about 1,339 out of.
No, the percentage is showing, it's telling you it's 24% of the 5,000, so it'll be 1,300.
Oh, it'd be 1,300. Okay, so it would really help if we would have had the raw numbers, also what 24% it represents, what, so we would have to do the math, right?
Right.
15% of 37%, 37,000. Okay, all right. I'll do the math.
And what we can do for you, because in August, we'll be doing the suspension and expulsion, and so we're going to bring all of the raw data for both attendance and suspension expulsion and put them on a thumb drive for you, and so you'll have both data sets. But I'm going to take note of that for next year when we present this so that it's a little bit clearer for the board and for the community.
Okay, so you're on that page, so
Still
I'll
there,
just
yes.
ask. So when we look at the numbers, and obviously we've talked about the 24%, and we look over at the other numbers, but going forward, what are we going to do? Are you going to show us or talk tonight about what's really going to be done differently? Because I'm curious as to know is what we're doing like right now, and then we're realizing this result. But what are we going to go do differently other than the phone call? I mean, how are we really going to get the message across? You need to be in school. And then the other thing that's concerning me is as we look at subgroups, we wonder how did we even get to the point where African-American students are coming less than the other groups, and it's just extremely, extremely high, as opposed to when you look at special education, foster youth, there's challenges that are going on, homelessness, but that's even less. So I look at that number and I think, wow, because they're going kind of from here to there, and there's some that are stable, but that number is horrendous. But I'm really curious as to what will be our approach beyond the phone? Because I up until now, I did get those phone calls of what they do say, but, kind of what happens after that.
Yes, we will get into that. And one of the pieces that when we see this type of data, our work is to drill down and say, okay, so what is going on with these particular students? Are they making up a cluster in certain schools,
Right.
as Mr.
Right.
Tillman was talking about? Do we need to funnel more
Right.
resources there? We have to understand what their need is. and yes,
And where it's occurring.
that's right. That's right.
Hey, Ms. Medina?
I wanted to ask a question regarding when we go to the homes, to the students' homes with the parents, which students are those? Are those the chronically absent students that we visit their homes?
When you do the operation recovery.
Hello? Yeah,
The
sorry. Our
recovery.
verifiers go out to the homes when a student reaches 6 unexcused or
Six unexcused.
6.
And
So prior to reaching that chronic absenteeism rate.
Okay, and then the reason why I ask is because I've been on those trips, and you look at the information of the students, a lot of times, and I think a majority of them were special ed students, either disconnected from I spoke with one, and she just didn't want to go back to school because he didn't find it relevant. There was, they just didn't see no purpose in going to school, even with the dad saying, you're going to go to school, he's just going to find a way to get out. So I'm just curious if when we're even going to those homes and walking, are we looking at the profile of the student and how we can help and provide supports? Because it seems like what we're doing now, and I'm glad we're looking at it right now, we're not doing an adequate job. But I think we should definitely look at special ed as how we're really dealing and making sure that the school, because we can try to bring them in the school, but if we're not, if they're not finding no interest, it doesn't matter what we do. They're still going to go back home or
Yes.
somewhere else.
Right.
Mr. Tillman?
You mentioned something, you said you have verifiers that go out to the homes after they met 6 absences.
correct.
And how many verifiers do we have?
Under the supervision of Ms. Ray Culberson, we have 5.
And how many of the verifiers are African American?
None.
In terms of the sites, how do we, I'm assuming you guys have numbers where, for instance, you have high concentration of African-American students, and you see that their numbers are better than these, and so you go to those sites to glean what's being done differently there that encourages those students to come more than other sites, because I think that's going to be a big deal. I think, too, that if we got somebody going to a house, some of that culture stuff does play into it. And I'm not saying every household's going to be the same, but it does make a big difference. If you got somebody coming to the house that the person feels comfortable with and the parent feels comfortable with, and I'm telling you, it makes a big difference. And we got to have the discussion. If we don't have the discussion, we're not going to solve these problems. But those are the things that we have to target and tailor to fix these problems. It doesn't do us any good just not to fix some of the simple issues. When you go to churches, it's sad to say, they say Sunday is the most segregated day of the week. because people are there with folks they feel comfortable with. And they come to places where they feel comfortable and feel wanted. And I'm telling you, all that plays a role. And we have to factor that in. We're missing the boat when we don't. I really think a good thing about a lot of the sites where, and for the parents who speak English as a second language, when you find somebody that speaks that language, then they also have that cultural values also. And I'm telling you, if we don't at least consider that, we're missing out on some easy gains. And I just hope you guys take that back and realize that it makes a difference. I can't emphasize that enough.
Yes, point heard. And so that you know, we have, they have just been graduated, our what we call our CHOOSE Community Health Education Workers, and they are a diverse group. And they will be going out to homes specifically around health and education needs, and they're going to be collaborating with youth services to do just that. Now, I know there's at least 6, perhaps 8, and we're going to continue to grow that type of work. So we are working on that type of work and getting better at doing that. We have a long way to go, and our data shows it, right? Our data shows it.
Dr. Flores?
Yes, just to follow up on what Mr. Tillman said, I think that, putting resources into it is really important. How many people do we need that are culturally competent and are trustworthy and, know our community will trust them? We need to hire people that are able to communicate with our Black and Latino and Samoan families or Asian families, so that they can, and white families, all the different families and cultural groups that we have. And they don't trust people they don't know. And we have to begin to establish those communications of trust with them as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mr. Gallo?
Yeah, and I think coupling them with the community health workers, et cetera, so that you kind of minimize the touches. I mean, if they get that divergent of, knocks on their door, I would try to have a multi-purposed objective in there if it's community health, and they can also do the attendance piece, and, especially if they reflect the demographics of the doors they're knocking on. It's, I think that's the way to do it. Then you're not bothering them, so to speak, and, even though I think to develop relationships, we need to clearly have more than just one contact for our purposes. There ought to be, what can we do to help you? Is there anything we can assist you with? And maybe I would probably suggest that we have a multi-tiered approach to parental contacts, not just a request of information, but also maybe even a portrayal of these are the types of services we offer, these are the kinds of, so I would really think through a contact strategy. Just a recommendation.
Yes, no, absolutely. And these are the type of conversations that youth services has been having with community partners and that we've been having. And so, yes, thank you for that. So I'm going to transition then to what has been happening.
Just before, Dr. Flores again. Okay. I'm sorry.
And is it Suzanne or Brenda? Go ahead.
Thank you. So in order to reach our objective, an attendance improvement campaign was created. The goal is to achieve a 1 ADA point growth to recover instructional days lost. During the attendance improvement campaign meeting, stakeholders collaborated to develop a 5-point plan to create school attendance awareness throughout attendance advertising in order to relay a consistent message throughout the community. The collective impact of the ideas expressed by the stakeholders bring awareness, which will also create family engagement and community involvement. Within the 5 points, strategies were also developed to implement during the school year to help the district move towards the goal of achieving a 1-point ADA growth.
So in efforts to reach our 97 ADA, Youth Services took a proactive approach to target the students that missed 8% of last school year, totaling 15 days absent, a combination of excused and unexcused absences. SARP started to meet and will continue to meet during the month of July with over 2,000 families to talk about what they can do to help improve their attendance and to address the number of absences they accumulated throughout the school year. We're also going to offer resources and interventions to help improve the attendance for the upcoming school year. Parents will be notified of the beginning of the school year and when they're scheduled to start.
So we've already started on some of the work, in other words. So they've already been meeting with people. In July, they've met with these over 2,000 families, and of those families, 66.4% of them were elementary, and that was purposeful. The team decided that it was really important to make sure that our first day of attendance and when there is strong, and we'll talk a little bit further about that. So of the 2,000 families, most of them were elementary, but they also met with middle and high school, explaining to the parents the difference between excused and unexcused and why that is no longer the message and the instructional impact on their students. And they're going to continue to do this work and finding out from families why they may be missing so much school. So we've already started that work, but we've got a pretty aggressive plan on what's going to happen next. So
Okay. Mr. Gallo?
Yeah, so I heard what isn't the message anymore. What is the message that you're saying?
we want them in school so that they can be learning. So when they're missing school, they lose instructional time. And so we're focusing on the amount of time students lose when they're not in school, and they need to be in school so that they're not missing that learning.
Okay, is that a compelling argument? Are we seeing it being received well?
I believe it's being received well.
I mean, you know,
I mean, the
there's a
ladies
purpose
have
for
been-
learning and outcomes, and I think some of the data you presented in here about a absentee student is X times more likely to suffer these various consequences.
Right, that's part of the
And
message.
I'm hoping that's more compelling data than saying, we want your child in school to learn. I mean, no kidding.
Right. So in other words, are we talking about how when they're younger and if they are below in reading and writing in the K and the first grade, then they're 4 times more likely to be a dropout and 8 times more likely.
Do we have
to
like
be
little
excluded?
handouts that maybe,
We do have brochures, correct?
We absolutely do,
Yes.
and I think
Yes.
most
are
importantly.
they pretty eye-catching and
They
all of that
absolutely
kind
are.
of things? You know, not kind of the typical threefold out kind of things that people toss.
No, they're
at
definitely
minute.
catchy. And then I
Okay.
think it's important that you know that the message that we're giving parents now is regardless of whether they're excused or unexcused, because unfortunately, many times parents think so long as the absence is excused, it's okay. And so now we're letting them know, even if they're excused, we need them to be in school. We need them to be there. And so that's a little change in our communication with the families.
Yeah, and I think giving them the why is really the important thing, because
Absolutely.
otherwise it could be just seen as like, we need your compliance, and no longer are you going to be excused anymore, so you're not excused anymore. It could be seen as just a penalty, another thing you're coming and complaining about, you know, and I think you could have the same message if it's appropriately. I mean, I'm not suggesting you're not doing it, but I'd just like to understand it so that we can even be articulating that message and maybe putting it out on our website and social media and all of these kinds of things with kind of a positive message and kind of as versus a punitive one, you know, that we don't do that, we don't allow this anymore. You know, that's kind of a negative way to do it. But the positive way is look at the benefits you're going to get from economic prosperity and put them on a pathway to prosperity and blah, 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 you know. Just recommendation. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Rogers?
Thank you. I know you said that there was kind of a campaign, and there's 2 questions that I have, because I've talked about this before with the campaign that's district-wide, that we all know what we're saying, what we're doing, and it's catchy, and it has all the bells and whistles. You've talked to 2,000 parents in July, is that what it said? So that's when the problem had occurred, right? At that point,
Right.
those were the ones that it's happening. And so what are we doing before?
And that's what we're going to get to, because
Because you said strategy, and I'm just trying to kind of hone in on what is the specific strategy?
Right, and it's the strategy for this upcoming school year. Last year, what we did is we gave information to our principals. We gave them tools to have conversations with principals, with their community members. We gave them data pieces to look at to even know who your students are. And what we have learned in looking back and having the conversations with parents is our schools are still not completely clear in their head that excused and unexcused
Right.
is no longer okay.
Exactly.
And so we're working on changing that mindset and recreating a message that has been going on since I was in school, where it was okay if it was an excused absence. So we have to change that thinking, and we're working on that. And we know that takes more time. And so that was this year, and we see it didn't do enough. We can
Right.
see that. That's a very
So the strategy is coming out the blocks is before this happened, is when are we having the meetings with the parent, or is it a brochure that's going in registration packets? How are you engaging? And I heard you say that this is going to be part of the parent strategic plan, I think.
Well,
Did you mention that?
having an office that is welcoming to all our
Okay.
parents is part of
But
it.
this messaging would be part of our strategic plan that I'm waiting for, that I'm hoping that it's just great. I know you're going to do a great job on it, but when, before the problem occurs, are we doing this? Because I know in the SARBs, and I think a week ago, someone walked up and gave me your new brochure, and I actually saw that last week. But that's when the problem has occurred, and they're sitting down in that meeting with everyone, and we're trying to get on, back on track. But what are we saying, and how are we reaching before? Because there's a whole message that you have to undo, like you said. If it's excused, it sounds like it's excused. I don't even know why we need to talk about it anymore. If it's going to be a problem, we might have to eliminate even doing that. But what are we saying prior to them getting here? Because once they're there, we're just preaching to the choir again.
Right, absolutely. And so we have quite a few things that we're doing district-wide before they get there.
Okay.
And
So I guess maybe, probably for me, I want to see the strategies. I think, because I hear we're doing some things, and I guess maybe I need to see where some of those things are so we can weigh in to see, what, should we do this all together, or can we do 1, 2, 3? What are the major steps? And I'm just not hearing the specifics yet. So you probably have them, but I'm just not hearing them. So maybe if we can get something, we can see if you have a strategy, bullet points or whatnot, we can look at that.
So if I can go through this slide, and then, because this slide right here is what we're talking about, and then if the board would allow me to go through this, and then if there's any other questions? Because this is the
Can
one
you
that
wait?
really
Or
tells you.
Can you wait? Danny?
Are you going to talk about the campaign more, or?
Yes.
You can wait, Abigail. Okay. All right, thank you.
Is that okay? And then if you have more, then we can definitely get that for you. So first thing is, it became very, it was shared with me multiple times during my, well, it hasn't been a first year yet here, so I'm going to say my first 9 months, that our first day of school, or even our first 6 weeks of school, our attendance is very low. And then as time goes on, the number increases greatly. So it goes from about 85% of our enrolled students to then our 100%. And not all of those students are new to our district. Many of them are our students that have been in our district. And so a big push this year is to make sure that our communities, and especially our areas where we tend to have the lower turnout at the beginning of the year, we're getting people out there to walk the areas and let families know school will be starting on August 7th. We're really excited to see your children. Please make sure that they show up. If you haven't already enrolled, so then we could find the families who haven't enrolled, go to your local school. And that's a collaborative piece. It's going to be between youth services staff, we're bringing our homemakers in, and we're bringing our community, our CHOOS, our community health education workers. So you can hear, all right, you've got some youth service families or youth service staff coming together, you've got family engagement coming together, and then we're collaborating with hopemakers. That's going to be a 2-day morning event in the first week of August. So we're doing that push. We're pretty aggressive because it's a short timeline, but we want to make sure that we get to the right spaces. We think we pulled the right data to know which schools tend to have the lowest number, and we'll be moving forward with that. Another piece, when I had the opportunity to go to Operation Student Recovery when I first started, so I think this was in October maybe, I learned that a lot of the students I was visiting, and they were 7th graders, they were not in school because they didn't have their TDAP. And so many of them didn't have their TDAP, and that was what was keeping them out of school. And so working with health services this year, starting in January, they pulled all of our current 6th graders to see, okay, who needs TDAP, and they targeted those students. And they worked with those families, and we offered clinics throughout the various points in spring. And we have gone from having 3,512 incoming 7th graders who needed TDAP. In January, we're down to 1,443 students who need TDAP. We've got another clinic coming, and we're working on lowering that number across the board so that that is not a barrier. Because if that's what the problem is, and there are students in 6th grade, we can identify them, and we have. So we've already decreased that number and expect to see those students in school. And you know, when you go from 3,500 to about 1,000, that's a pretty good decrease of students, so we anticipate that increasing.
Madam President,
Yeah.
I was going to bring that up, that's probably why we had low ADA for quite a few weeks, because lots of parents came to me last year because they could not get the vaccination for their middle schooler. And a concrete strategy that I recommend is that we have mobile clinics at all our middle schools the first day, the first 3 days or week of school, so that the kids can be vaccinated on the spot, and so therefore they don't miss that day.
Yes, we actually have it set up with most of our middle schools. Our challenge, and we're still working through it, is
Right.
that right now we have 200 doses, and that's not enough for all of them. So we're looking for other ways that we can get the dosages from maybe
Well,
county health.
those are the resources that you should know that we would approve,
Oh, yeah, it's
because
not-
we
it's-
want, to plan ahead.
It's availability, it's not funding. So we're working on it, and we're not going to give up. We're going to make sure that our students that we have that access for.
If we only have 200 and there's 1,300 or 1,700 that aren't,
1,400.
how
No,
much?
but it's an availability issue, Barbara. It's
Yeah.
not a cost issue.
We're not giving up. We're going to go to other spots. We're going to keep working on it because we know that we want them there.
So the availability issue is with the vaccine,
Correct.
and we have nowhere in the county that we can get it?
We are working to see if we can get it in more places than where we've got it. Right now, it's through Loma Linda, but we're not giving up. So we're going to contact county health. We know there's other places that we can get it, and we're going to keep working on it. And what we're also going to do with those 1,043 students is we're going to call the homes to see, maybe some of them, they've already got appointments, right? So we don't want to be offering something that we could give to someone else who needs it. So we will be doing that outreach to them before school starts.
Well, if we don't have the vaccines, then it's a moot point to have.
Well, but no, we
yeah.
don't. As of the afternoon, 12 o'clock today, that became a little bit of a barrier, but we're not going to give up on that.
Okay. Well, I would highly recommend that we get 1,200
Yeah,
vaccines.
we would too. And maybe a little more, right? Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's an example of something that we're doing for the first day to really bump that. And we know once we get them in school, then they start on the right trajectory.
And what are the vaccinations that the kids don't have when they're coming into school, that the parents need, that we had provided in the past? Do you know?
I don't know offhand, and that is our next kind of frontier when it comes to vaccinations is for our K and our first graders.
Because I don't think we allow them in unless they're vaccinated, correct?
There's a little bit of a window, but ultimately they need to have
Yes.
their vaccination.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we help them with that too. That's a little bit more of a challenging group, right? Like our sixth graders, we know who they are. We can identify and we can get them those vaccinations before they move into 7th grade. Our incoming K, a little bit more challenging. But again, we're not giving up on that. So that's one of the strategies, is get them in school at the first day of school and target those areas that we know historically we haven't had that. The next strategy is to ensure that accurate messaging to the site leaders and families. And so you've heard us say that many times, that it's changing mindset, and we have to make sure that everyone is hearing that. And that includes, yes, our board. So providing you with the resources that you need so that you can have those conversations when you're in the community as well, so that everyone understands that when a student misses school, they miss learning, and ultimately it can lead them down a path to incarceration, and we don't want that for our students. We want them to have options, college and career, whatever they choose. So that's going to be a big piece of this entire campaign, is talking about it in terms of learning opportunities that are lost versus excused or unexcused. We're going to be reassessing our staffing and our alignment to current district needs, and specifically to emphasize on case management. So in other words, we have over 60 people in the district, including the 5 that work for youth services, who it is their job and their job title to do something with attendance. We have over 60 of them. What they're doing is what we need to change, right? They have been doing what they've been told to do for many years, which is to clear absences. We are going to be training them to look at this as a case management piece, talk with the families and find out why the student was absent, and then start tracking. So we're going to have to create some kind of data tracking system of why we have students missing, and are there consistent trends. For example, what we hear frequently, and we want to be sure that we are accurate in this, is that there's some transportation needs. All right, well, let's track that data, and then let's mitigate that need and provide what the students are necessary. For our students who have high asthma needs, my sister was very asthmatic. She missed so much school. She was home more than she was in school. And there were days where she just couldn't go to school, and she just couldn't. She couldn't make it to the school. She needed home and hospital. And so she never got it. She should have. And so knowing who those students are, but the only way you know is by that communication with the families and the tracking of the data. And so those people who we have at our schools, we just need to train them differently and support them in doing that, and give them the resources that they need in order to be able to do that. That's our first step, to then know, is that enough? Or do we need more? Do we need different people, to Mr. Tillman's point? Do they need to be more reflective of our community? Those are the type of pieces we'll look at. But first, we got to make sure we've trained them correctly. And right now, their messaging is the old messaging, and it's not their fault.
Right. Madam President, I want to ask her a question.
Yes, Dr.
For me, it would be not just to collect data. I would like them to problem solve.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
to be problem solvers, and to support our families. So I hope that the job description is expanded for them to be more humane, and to be more problem solving, and offer, assistance, so that, they feel comfortable in terms of their issue.
That the family feels comfortable sharing what the need is.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right, and
When-
that we can help them.
And so when I say data collection, we want to look at trends, but that's not going to be their only role. Picture
Right.
that they would call, they'd see what's going on, they would take notes, and then we can track it in areas or whatever our information system will be, and that person will also say, well, did you know we have this? Let me help you connect with this. Let me help you, let me have somebody contact you this way. Let me send out a community health.
Okay.
So that
they'll
type
be
of work.
They'll be problem solvers and supports.
And they need training on that.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And so that's why there you see a little connect the dot picture up there, because that's a lot of what the work is connecting the families to what they need. We're also going to, so this is number 4 now, we really want to review and refine attendance accounting protocols and systems. We're going to take it through the APQC process, and so board, you know that is the American Productivity Quality Center. The reason we're doing that is we want to just look at our internal attendance systems. We want to make sure, first of all, that attendance is being taken accurately and on time, and then that we're tracking it and we're coding it correctly. And right now, we need to just take a look at that and do a deeper dive. Otherwise, we might be going down the wrong trail just because the data we're looking at is not accurate. So that's going to take a little bit more time, but we are definitely going to be working in that direction. And once we feel very confident in the data that we're looking at, then we'll be putting in systems for progress monitoring so that a student doesn't get past 3 absences in 2 weeks and no one has done anything, right? We want some kind of trigger that comes up, which then this weaves into the grant that Ginger has achieved for the district on the I forget what, learning support schools, something along those. It's a very long title, but it has everything to do with attendance. And in that grant, we specifically put in there to develop some systems for early heralds, because we really believe that we can be very predictive about students, not that Harold. Mr. Gallo.
My favorite term.
Early heralds. But we believe that we can really predict some potential trajectories for students very early on, and we want to figure what those are, figure those out, and have them come up in the system digitally, so it's not people crunching numbers, that the computer system's doing that. So we'll be working on that. Number 5, I've already said we're going to retrain our staff to ensure that there's attendance accounting accuracy. We will be reestablishing the school-based incentive programs. We did a little bit of that this year, not enough of that, so we will be reestablishing that for this coming school year to get our schools to be very excited about getting their students there. And really, it's the schools and that personal touch that's going to make the difference, right? So that will be coming. We're going to reestablish an ADA recovery program. So it's my understanding we had one a few years ago. We haven't had it in a while, so we will be looking at that. We're also looking at possibly different modems for the ADA recovery, whether that's in person or potentially online or a combination of. Just make sure we can do all that. We're going to continue Operation Student Recovery, and we're going to do that with a little bit more data-driven case management. So you hear case management a lot. So in other words, you've got a 7th grade student, and we went to their home, and we visited, and they just didn't feel like going to school, and we got them up from Operation Student Recovery, and we got them to school. Are we monitoring that they're coming back? And are we monitoring whatever their need is and providing that to make sure that that we've mitigated? That's not a one-time up and back to school and then they fall back into their old patterns. And we have our Hope Makers that will be helping us to do some mentoring for these students around that. So that's identifying which students we're going to do that for, because with case management, we have to be careful. We don't have an adult for every single possible student. We have to choose the ones and then move down the system. And then finally, targeting schools to support specific schools that are specifically below district average. Youth Services has this data. They've been doing this work, and so they will continue to do the work. And the big difference is that they will have everybody trained in some areas in case management that they just haven't had the opportunity to do in the past. So, do you guys have anything else you would like to add? Okay. So I'm not sure if that was enough strategy. We're not going totally into the details. We are bringing back this, is it a steering committee? What do you got? Their group of community-based organizations, faith-based, the people that they started working with, and they are going to be meeting, I think, in a couple of weeks, right?
August the 18th.
Mm-hmm. To continue to talk about and to work through how to bring all these pieces together. We're going to have a September attendance campaign, and September is the month for attendance awareness, and so we'll be having that this year. So we welcome questions.
Thank you. Ms. Medina?
Okay, thank you for the presentation, and I think that you guys have been doing the work, and I commend the whole team from the Youth Services as well as the department with Rachel. But I'm also looking at things that might be missing, and I know that Mr. Gallo had mentioned it, and also Ms. Rogers and the other board members, is finding a purpose why the students are going to come back. And I know that you're creating that positive messaging, and sometimes what I'm hearing more is the negative messaging is why not, this is what's going to happen to you. But we also have to look at what's going to motivate them, what's going to keep them, and what's the purpose of going to school. And when you look at also creating incentives, I see a drawback with that one because I've been in school sites before I was a board member where parents were being incentivized to bring their kids to school, and the kids were coming, they got the perfect attendance multiple years in a row, and yet their kids were doing poorly in school. So when you look at messaging it, don't necessarily message, oh, your kids are going to do better in school, because in reality it's not true. And so for me, it's also looking at data that shows, well, we're going to increase in attendance, but let's show that it's also increasing in student achievement, because there has to be a purpose and a reasoning why, because we're kind of telling parents, your kids are going to do better in school, and in some cases, students are not doing so well. And so we have to really be honest, what are the top 10 reasons why our students are not going to school? Do we have a list like that? And if we haven't done surveys to find out exactly what's going on, then just trying to do, not that it's superficial messaging just because, these are the top reasons in the state of California, but let's look at here in our area, which is very unique and very different, and how we're going to motivate the kids to come to school. So anyways, I just want us to look at that perspective as well as the great work that you guys are doing on that part, but how are we going to messaging it? The other piece is, actually, I did say the incentive part of it. Okay, so that's basically it, and I really trust that you guys are going to do a great job, but just look into that piece.
Thank you, Mr. Gallo. Well, it's okay. I'll run the meeting tonight. Thank you.
And I think maybe just one more emphasis. I mean, I heard words like case management, and, these are typical government bureaucracy terms. And while that might be a good noun descriptor of what we're doing, I think we got to figure out a different marketing campaign and strategy on this. And it ought to be something along the lines of coaching, mentorship, these kinds of, even counselor is that's a little less threatening than case management, like you've created a case, a legal case, a compliance. I mean, the messaging in itself is not one of positive framework. And these are interesting data compliance points, and I'm all about data-driven systems, as you know. But this is a different type of a strategy, and it's got to really be a marketing campaign, and one that is again, motivating and inspiring and engaging and showing how you actually rebuild a community and foundation and, all of the healthy indicators that emerge from a student attending school and the opportunities that are opened up to them that are limitless possibilities and things. These need to be the kinds of aspirational visions and objectives that I think we need to communicate here. So I think we really should think about getting, certainly our public relations folks involved if you already haven't, but some maybe professional campaign that we roll out in conjunction with an entire community engagement strategy, as we're doing with enrollment centers and everything. These are not independent activities is the point. And I know this is all part of an overall strategy, but I just can't emphasize the positive nature of this and to kind of step back and rethink the way we're even characterizing this and, showcasing to parents that they need to be case managed. And it's literally a negative connotation in my mind, and I guarantee you it will be received that way by most people who think, gee, I don't need to be case managed. I'm not on... I don't know if that makes sense to you guys.
Oh, I appreciate that. I don't see it that way. I see it as like a taking care of and a kind of.
Well, I know you don't see it that way, but that is the
but that's-
connotation
yeah.
of those terms.
No, that's
Those
good to
terms
know.
are government oversight, bureaucratic, compliance-related elements for those that, require some sort of public investment in ensuring compliance. Those are the messages that it communicates.
Yeah, that's a
And
great
I'm just,
perspective. Appreciate that.
just making a recommendation
Yeah.
that we try to figure out our terminology and repurpose and focus it on something completely the opposite of the way it's being portrayed in my mind. Just recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gallo. Mr. Tillman?
Yeah, two things. One of them, just a segue on what Mr. Gallo was saying. You mentioned campaign. A long time ago, many years ago, when I was in college, I used to promote parties. So I was real good at getting people to come to certain areas, to my events. But the one thing we have a disconnect with in the district is tailoring the campaign to different groups. Now, I know Dr. Mars is big on the making hope happen, but that doesn't really pop in all communities, you know what I mean? And I really think that we should look at tailoring the campaigns to the different areas. I mean, if you're talking about this huge number for African Americans with chronic absenteeism, we should hear stuff on BET and TV1 and 92.3 and 93.5 and 991 and I mean, those are the things you would advertise on, and the social media stuff, and the way you do it. I haven't seen the brochure, but it's probably like that stuff you guys send to my house. Doesn't pop, don't make you want to read it, you know. So you need to have somebody that's going to create flyers and brochures to tailor to the parents, where you have the highest level of absenteeism, and we're not doing that. I guarantee we're not doing that. And it's not hard to do, but you have to, one, say you're going to do it, and then employ the right people, the right companies to do it. Doesn't cost a whole lot of money, but you have to do it. We talk about faith-based, but a lot of the parents who have the absentee problem, they're not going to churches, so you can't depend on just the faith-based community. You got to talk to the folks who's going to the clubs and the parties and appeal to them too, because their kids aren't coming to to school, and some of them have the chronic absenteeism problem. But there's a way to tailor it. I don't hear us doing that. I don't see us doing it. But it can make a huge difference. Just what Mr. Gallo was talking about, and the way you say it, because the key is to get the kid to come to school and to explain it to the parent in a good way how to do it. To me, if you know school's starting, then we should start running ads on all these radio stations and TV stations. It doesn't cost a whole lot of money to do it. But that would be a way to do it. The second thing is on the question, were the students that were chronically absent this year the same students that were chronically absent the previous year?
We can get you that data.
Because if you have the chronic absenteeism for the same student year to year, then you should target those families. Right. And then that's where the incentive should be. The incentive should be to those parents. You know, I did the math, so if 10% of 180 days is 18 days, and 18 days times $61, because you're getting about $11,000 a student, 1,100 divided by 180 is about $61, and $61 times 18 days is $1,100. So it would behoove us to say if your student doesn't end up with chronic absenteeism, you cut it in half. I don't know where the cutoff is. Where's the cutoff if it's 10%? So if you miss less than 10% of the days, then you'll get a $50 gift card to Walmart or a $50 gift card to Target or something. If you know it's the same group of people who kids aren't coming to school every year. That's the kind of incentives you could use that would target to the folks that we know are having the problems. And I don't mind doing it because it benefits the kids. I hear what Ms. Medina said, but I can guarantee you, percentage-wise, kids are a whole lot better in class, in school, than they are not. So we do want to encourage them to come to school. It does benefit them. A lot of the students want to be at school, but their parents don't take them to school. I've seen it. My daughter teaches elementary school, and she'll ask the kid, how come you weren't in school? My mom didn't feel like taking me to school today. So, you know, but I really think one of the drawbacks is the way we do the campaigns. I hope that you guys take that to heart and don't do the standard fancy big words brochure that no one reads and don't mean anything to anybody. Have somebody design it in such a way that it's going to move people to want to make a change. And it's definitely doable, I'm telling you. It's definitely doable. But we just have to do it in the right way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tillman. Ms. Rogers?
I agree. Actually, my comments were going to be on the campaign as well, but asking, we currently have It's a Gas. So how is that going to affect It's a Gas currently? Because my whole problem have been ongoing with It's a Gas. I had 2 students, I don't even remember reading anything about it. I think when I finally got on the board or something, I heard more about it, didn't get a chance to go to it. I think it's great. I think we also even almost lost the program. So campaigning is important when you're giving away a car. But I don't know what the bells and whistles were around even that, collaboration. And I do, I think I've mentioned this before on the board, incentives are very huge and very important. And I say that personally because that is one of the reasons why my kids never missed school. It started out in kindergarten with this desire to get this trophy that they saw this kid in the 12th grade. And I think since then we stopped the program. And then, they just continued on. But then I know several times as some of our specific schools around last year, parents came to me because the principal said he didn't have money to continue to give them the medals and these different things. And they really wanted those awards. So those are important. And of course, as we said, how we message it. But I do want to know how this is going to either affect It's a Gas or build upon It's a Gas, because we currently have somewhat of a program now. I don't know how this attendance plays a part in it, and if it's even been considered.
So It's a Gas, as of the last 2, so it's my understanding it's been 2 years that it's been in, our rates have, how do I phrase this? And it's double negatives here. We have had more absences over those last 2 years than when we did not have It's a Gas. So it's not showing the results that, right. So the option of winning
All
a
because
car
it's called It's a
apparently is.
Gas. Why not just call it Win a Car?
And to speak to that, though, each of the high schools.
And let me just clarify what the name was. It's a gas to go to class.
Correct.
So
It's a gas to go to class. Yes, thank you. Yeah, because if you let that hang, it's not okay. But what our schools did do, our high schools did a lot of outreach to their students and announcements on a regular basis, and it just didn't catch here for some reason. But we won't give up on some type of work. It just may not look like it's a gas to go to class.
Thank you. Dr. Flores?
I just have some follow-up questions. Thank you for the report. And it is a daunting challenge for us to move. And I think, Mrs. Christakos, just 1% of increase is $5 million. So that's additional resources, to give to our kids. And so that would be quite an incentive, I think, for us to go through. With these 2,000 families, my first question is it just informational, or were you also gathering data regarding why their kids were absent?
We're going to be gathering data, and it's going to be an informational meeting to let them know what our expectations are for the upcoming school year and to let them know when the school year starts.
But are you also going to ask them some of the issues related to why? Okay.
Absolutely. So
That
we
would be
offer-
good to know, because sometimes we don't know. Maybe they didn't have gas money.
Right.
Maybe the car broke down, maybe, all kinds of different things. And if that's so, then what are their alternatives? What solutions do we have, for them in terms of their children, et cetera, et cetera?
Right.
Okay. I wanted to clarify for the board and also for the audience and public that I had asked last time about attendance verifiers, and thank you, Dr. Wiseman, for the board correspondence. And apparently, because we're changing the responsibilities of attendance verifiers, we're now changing it to attendance assistants, because they're going to be included. Their position or their responsibilities are going to include other things about what we've been talking about. Correct?
Working with the families and
Working with the
connecting
families.
resources, yes.
So they will be called attendance assistants. So, but I guess it's difficult to get rid of the use of attendance verifier because they're no longer attendance verifiers, correct?
Correct, but yes, and part of it, though, is just training them to look at their work differently. So they could still be called an attendance verifier and still do the work that is needed.
So what are they called?
So we have quite a few different titles. We have attendance verifiers, attendance assistants, we have attendance technicians. There's quite a few, and they vary based on what level they're at. Yeah, over 60.
So why are we abolishing if we still have attendance verifiers, why are we abolishing those positions?
My understanding is over the past 2 years, in collaboration with the Personnel Commission, we've been abolishing the attendance verifier positions and replacing them with the other position through attrition. So anytime a position becomes vacant, what we'll do is we'll abolish that and replace it with the other one. So over time, we'll see that it will transition to the other classification.
So if it's quote vacant, we do fill it with this name of this position?
That is correct.
Okay. So we are refilling these positions?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Well,
Now-
we're attempting to. That's always the goal.
Okay, great. And I'd like to know where you are in your communication with Corona Norco, because they put in place a very comprehensive plan, and they're at 96 something, or 0.2, 0.4.
They are. So I'll start, and then I believe Suzanne was the one who actually spoke with them. I know that they've reached out. They learned a little bit more about what they provide, which are these, I don't want to call them audits. What do they call them?
They're all days. They pick selected dates throughout the school year, and the students have to be there the entire day. So it's called All In. And they're 100% days. So the assistant superintendent from Corona Noco Unified, what they did is selected dates throughout a school year. They launch it out to all of the schools. They advertise it and let them know that that's the specific date that they're focusing on.
You know, I happened to be invited to Fontana Unified and to go to their board meeting, I think in the fall or last spring. And they had schools, elementary schools, competing with each other in terms of attendance and how much their attendance got. And they were rewarded with extra resources, the schools that had higher attendance. So maybe we should be competitive and provide incentives that way as well. And I think, Mr. Tillman, a while back, I also recommended, why couldn't we give, families target cards if their kids reached, at the end of a quarter, they improved their attendance. What kind of incentive could we give the family? And it could be target cards, it could be, I don't know, Walmart cards, whatever, but it would be something supportive for their family needs. Yeah. Okay, that was it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tillman?
Are all of the attendance verifiers, are all the positions bilingual positions?
No, they're not all bilingual.
Okay, all right. Because I really do hope that you guys look at hiring a diverse group to target some of these areas. And I can tell you, most African Americans like me, they don't speak 2 languages. So, and I think when we're going to some of these homes and some of the schools that we know have high numbers of African Americans that have this chronic absenteeism, that we should really hire folks that can target them.
Right.
Thank you. Mr. Gallo?
Yeah, just one more comment, and not to belabor the point. But when you mentioned that you contacted the 2,200 families, and you said it's to communicate our expectations, again, this is a negative compliance-oriented communication when that is the language we're using on this. It's here's what you're not doing, and your responsibility is to meet our expectations. It's literally completely the opposite message I think we really need to be articulating. So no more on that.
Okay. Thank you.
And thank you for the presentation.
Really appreciate you giving us all the information. I just have a few questions. One, I want to give a compliment to the 95% who's attending school. I think we should honor those students because we usually deal with the negative and not with the positive. So for the 95%, and I hope most of you are listening, the parents and all, we appreciate you coming to school every day. And we know you understand the benefit of it. And we know there are others who would like to be there, and for whatever reason they cannot. These are some of the questions I like to pose. One, are we using a parent portal every day to either say to students, not why weren't you in school, or telling a parent, your student didn't come to school today, but letting the parent know, we miss your student today. You know, I hope he or she can be here tomorrow. Just a real simple message. And also send out some positive messages. As many parents as I talk to or speak with, I hear very few who say, I got a call and someone said they were glad my child was in school. So we have to remember to send out those positive messages as well. And then for a number of years, we had pastors on the premises, and Ray, I know that was one of your projects. Hopefully we can get that going again, because it does work when kids see people there, talking to them, and even saying to them, I'll see you tomorrow. It makes a big difference. The other thing, media. And I know I heard Mr. Tillman talked about how we advertise, and you know, I don't know a thing about Instagram or any of the other stuff, but I know.
You know about Facebook?
I'm sorry. But if we could go to some of the sites we know young people are on, and I know they're on some because I see some on Facebook. Also, and I think I heard someone else mention this, I think it might have been Dr. Flores, even if we identify places like the movie theaters or someplace else to say, if you bring in a note from your teacher, you had a month of perfect attendance, we either give you 50% off on your movie ticket, or some of the other places that young people go, and do those types of things. McDonald's, you can get a free meal if you have a month's perfect attendance. I think one of the things we asked of our kids, we say to our kids, you need to be in school every day for 180 days. We need to say you need to be in school for 22 days. That's more reasonable. And kids can, you know, many will say, I got this, because I want to see Superman or what, Superwoman or whatever it is coming out, you know, Spider-Man, et cetera. The other thing, okay, we talked about the incentive. I know you talk about your professional development for your attendance verifiers, but we have counselors in every school, and we need to probably do some retraining.
Yes.
And again, you know, we talk about that mindset. We need to let people know it is our business when kids aren't in school, and sometimes we think it's not our business, but it is.
Yes.
And the last thing, why can't we use the buses? A lot of our students, if they're not riding the buses, they're driving behind them on the side. I was sitting here and I thought of what I consider a good poster on the side of the bus or behind the bus, which is a child sitting on the bus, and you say, where are you going? And there could be a photo or an abstract of a school or an abstract of a prison. You know, so if you're not going to school, you're going to prison. So, you know, something of that nature could be a kind of cutesy, but yes, yet there's a message there.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't use our buses, and our kids are riding them, so that they see them passing by, or they're driving behind them. And I don't know why we can't do it with our school buses. We, you know, with our contract with transportation, they can do something.
That's a great idea. You're giving us very good ideas. We're actually going to be putting together a communication plan with Linda's office, and so these are some great ideas So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I encourage
Chairman has-
our fellow board members and people in the audience and those at home, any suggestions you have, you know, if we're at 95%, but that's not our goal. We have to still working on it. So for all of you out there, you need to help us. We need your help. So thank you so much. Mr. Tillman, I guess I will call on you again.
Dr. Hill actually spurred a question. She talked about the 95% attendance rate that we have, but I'm confused. If you have 16% of your students that are chronically absent, how could you have a 95% absentee rate? I mean, 95% attendance rate?
So it's that idea that it's the same students missing over and over again. So they make up the chronic. It's that percent. They are the ones that we need to be targeting.
So let me be clear. So 16% of the students are not, 16% of individual students are not chronically absent?
No, they are.
Mr. Robertson, Mr. Culberson.
It's not percentage, it's a rate. So it's attendance rate, and it's based on instructional days. So you can have a number of 16% of the students, but then when you take the number of instructional days and you map it out, the calculation comes out a little bit different because it becomes a rate. So you can say that there's 16%, but then based on the number of days each one of those missed, it deducts from the 88 rate. And that's why, that's a great question, financial guy. You can see the difference. One's a student, one's a rate. I'd have to show you on paper. So, just so I'm clear, they still come to school some days, but I thought in order to be chronically absent, you had to miss at least 10% of school.
Correct.
So if 16% of the kids are missing 10% of school, it doesn't make sense. You can still have 95% attendance, 80. I'll get with you on the math later. Thank you.
We'll give you a Common Core lesson. And post it on Facebook, Mr. Tillman.
If that's the way Common Core is, we should get rid of it.
Dr. Bokemer.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. I just want to make sure of a couple things. Number one, that we have the follow-ups that you've requested, board, and the things I listed. These are in no particular order, by the way. I was just writing them down randomly. There was a request for ADA recovery, and that's part of the plan. There was request for additional information on the number of students that miss days because of asthma. We'll get that information to you. You've made it very clear we need to find the right incentives and have a positive approach. You want additional information on our comparison districts in terms of trends they may be experiencing in relation to their own attendance. You would like the raw numbers as well as the percentages. So if we say 24% of a group is absent, how many kids does that actually equal, right? Janie's going to do a BC on the funding models of all the different programs so you can see, well, how do we actually get funded in independent study? It's obviously clearly very different than it is for regular school program. Be mindful in our approach, be mindful of cultural sensitivity and meeting the needs of people in terms of them feeling connected and comfortable with those who are trying to provide service to them. Make sure we get enough vaccine, no matter where we find it, we'll find it and we'll get it to the kids. And then look at the patterns of chronically absent students in terms of, are these the same students that are chronically absent every year? Are we finding new kids that are chronically absent every year? So yeah, and where they are. So those are the follow-ups that I have. I hope I didn't, there are some other things from approach, like pastors on the premises. I'm going to address that in just a second. 4 key messages that I think you heard today that I just want to summarize. Number 1 is marketing and messaging. We are trying to shift the mindset. We kind of gave people permission to say it's okay to have your kid not be in school. And I remember parents, when I was a principal, those many years ago, when people would say, well, you just want the money. And I'd say, yeah, we need the money. So I'll just give you the absence excuse so you can get the money. And that's all it was really. It was about a dollar and cents transaction, when it really is trying to change the mindset of of our parents and our kids that if you miss, that was a great example, by the way, Dr. Manara's about learning the hard R or the base 10. That's critical information, and we have that every day going on in our schools. And that message does have to be positive. That we're taking an approach of problem solving and being needs-based, whether we call it case management or not. It's really, very few families don't send their kids to school because they don't think school is important. They don't send their kids to school because something's getting in the way. There's a need there. There's some kind of barrier or dilemma that's causing them to say, I can't send my child to school today. And we need to be about helping them connect with resources. And so that's a major tenet of what you heard today. You also heard about resource reallocation and redistribution. Are we doing the right work? Do we have the right people doing the right work? So that if we're doing work that used to count but doesn't count anymore, we still have great people. We just need to retrain them to do the right work. That's really going to help our families. And finally, this is a community approach. It's a collective impact type of idea where we're going to involve the pastors on the premises. We're going to involve our CBOs. We're going to involve our hope makers. We're going to involve people to get into that mentoring and support type of position with kids that we don't have enough employees to do. I mean, really, to have all of that going on with all their base jobs. But to have a person reach out to a student that says, you know what, you've been identified of having missed 5 days or 6 days already, and I'm just going to be kind of your guardian angel. I'm going to be your shepherd and say, I'm going to help you just to make sure, check in with you once a week or so, to just add that little extra personal touch that might make the difference for kids. What you heard, what I hope you heard tonight is that this is a very deliberate and intentional approach, and that's a phrase you're going to hear a lot this year about being deliberate and intentional. It causes us to dig into the data. 24%, 8.7%, 16%, that's just a number on a page, but what's behind that? What's the underlying information behind that percentage that really makes the difference for kids? We're going to dig deep enough and work hard enough to make a difference, and that's what you heard today, that it's really going to be a large effort, and I'm confident that we'll get there. I want to thank Dr. Menares and Mr. Culberson and Brenda and Suzanne for their leadership and what they're working to do. This is a big lift, but we're going to get there, and we're very confident with the board's support, and you've always been supportive in their efforts that will make a difference in terms of this attendance. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Culberson, did you want to make comments?
No comments. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, thank you, youth services, and I'm sure, I know I'm speaking on behalf of all 7 board members. We're here to support you in any effort you can to move that from 95% to as close to 100%, but at least keep it going up. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's
We
give them a round of
appreciate that.
applause. Thank you. We will now move to 3.0, which is student board members' comments, but we do not have any board members here, student board members here tonight. 4.0, public comments. Again, just want to remind those of you who are coming up to speak, there is a clock up here. You will have 5 minutes, and we hope when you hear Ms. Cunningham say time's up, that will be meaningful to you. So thank you so much for being compliant. Dr. Volkerman.
Thank you, Dr. Hill. The board welcomes Linda Hart on the subject of student mental health of African American Student Task Force. Linda? Sure. Do I have Bridget as well? Bridget and Tia Blair? Okay, got you all 3.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing us this opportunity. And first, I want to say, from our perspective, the community mental health outreach workers, we've been out in the community for the last 3 years, and we serve close to about 10,000 people. So we've seen a lot of things, and we've been approached regarding a lot of issues that happens to families. And one of the ones that I want to mention that in here that we hear is that many of the kids aren't coming to school because their clothes aren't clean. And many of them that live in particular areas of complexes, a lot of times they're asking quite a bit to have their clothes washed, you know, maybe $2 or $3 in the laundromat, in the laundry room, and some of them get their clothes stolen. So again, it would really be beneficial if you were to do a survey. And this is just some of the perspectives that, you know, some of the issues that come to our attention out in the community, and that's just to give you an example. But today I want to talk about mental health, because that is a mental health issue. Well, again, regarding even if you don't have enough food toward the end of the month, which we hear a lot, and a lot of the kids aren't coming to school because they're hungry. And so, again, just you know, take the opportunity to make sure that your outreach workers are sensitive, culturally sensitive to the areas and the needs. And I understand for some people it would be very intimidating to go in some of the areas where there is, you know, possibility of getting harmed. I know one of our outreach workers was attacked. So again, I mean, these are some of the issues that many of the outreach workers come to face. So I'm sure these are going to be some of the challenges that you will overcome. So I hope that's not part of that. I just want to say thank you. So today, I want to share with you some data regarding the work that we've done in the community and some data that we gathered. You can play that for them.
You're broken down and tired of living life on the merry-go-round, and you can't find a fighter, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out. Move mountains, we gon' walk it out and move mountains.
In today's society, our children are faced with many difficult decisions and challenges. Hopefully, by presenting research and data here today that shows where the great need is, we can better work together as a team to help our children succeed. One of the contributing factors to the onset of mental disorder is depression. According to San Bernardino, Our Community Vital Signs 2013 final report, students were asked if they ever felt so sad and hopeless every day for 2 weeks or more that they stopped doing some usual activities. Boys and girls in all grades in San Bernardino County reported higher rates of sadness than did their peers in California overall in 2009 through 2011. Girls consistently reported feeling more sad and hopeless than boys across all grades and all school districts. Now let's take a look at self-inflicted injury hospitalization. Bring your attention to our data from kidsdata.org and where it shows how San Bernardino has increased since 2009 and the number of kids that have been hospitalized due to self-harm. I point out again, this SEV data reflects the individuals that went to a hospital for care only. Unfortunately, the majority of youth who need mental health treatment do not receive it. And mental health problems in childhood often have effects into adulthood. According to kidsdata.org, San Bernardino's average of youth suicide is higher than California overall.
I will rise 1,000 times again. And we'll rise up. I like the waves. We'll rise up. In spite
Males are more likely to commit suicide, but females are more likely to report attempting suicide.
times again.
We want all kids to be free and happy, giving them more of a shared sense of being part of something positive as a collective interaction with their peers, as well as being able to express to an adult their needs for mental health care through programs we offer. African American Health Coalition's current activities are team building games, jump rope, emotional health surveys, line dancing, hula hoop, role playing, and double dutch. These activities are to help enhance the student's ability to think critically about situations, teach coping skills, and more. How can we all help? By supporting school policies that foster a positive and caring environment that promotes student engagement in schools, and supporting social-emotional learning, including problem-solving and coping skills. By supporting school policies that give children and youth screening for early identification and access to services. This is critical in preventing and reducing mental health problems. By supporting efforts to promote educational parent mental health presentations. By supporting organizations that promote education, resources, and referrals to reduce the stigma of mental illness and provide support for the children and their families.
The silence is quiet, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe. And I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet. Move mountains, bring it to its feet. Move mountains. And I'll rise up, I'll rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I do it if I...
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the board. My name is Tiawatha L. Blair. You know me many, many years ago. I've returned home. I came because our children need what is lacking in the school system. Ms. Linda gave me the opportunity to present my creation to you. Back in December, I came upon the school here, and I started with the students a program called AAMHCS, part-time, lunchtime art program. It is a positive mental attitudes and behavior program, developing minds and focusing on the arts. This is what our children lack, miss, and crave more and more. It's shocking how much they, almost in tears, want to continue it. It's just a few seconds of their time, and their time is so precious that they ask for more and more and more. I'd like to start this presentation, as you see in front here. This is what it starts from the African American Mental Health Coalition and the African American Student Task Force. Thank you. I'm new on board. Appreciate you. We continue on. This is, thank you very much. As I said, my name is Tiawatha Blair. I'm an instructor with the AAMHC, Developing Minds, Focusing on the Arts. is a concept that I developed and incorporated as a teacher in private and public school setting. Over the years, I've found that with each creation, students become more engaged, show increased self-esteem, acquire positive attitude and behavior. AAMHC has adapted the concept of developing mind, focusing on the arts. And together we have created the Lunchtime Arts Program for students of the San Bernardino Unified School District. The Lunchtime Art Program, Positive Mental Attitudes and Behaviors, it's very important to understand the purpose of this. As are created in students through the use of arts/crafts and music, encouraging students to focus on creative ways to explore their behaviors, their abilities to communicate, express positive feelings and emotions, is sending a message of comfort, enjoyment, and positive communication with the principals, teachers, and staff. This has been a rewarding and caring year. The mission of this program is to develop positive mental attitudes and behaviors by teaching and encouraging students communicate positively through the use of various artistic media using sketching, origami, song, and dance. Arts, craft, and music, it works. Positive mental attitudes and behaviors are created in students through the use of arts/craft and music, encouraging students to focus on creative ways to explore their abilities, communicate, and express their feelings as they relay a message of comfort and enjoyment. Developing a positive mental attitude and behavior is achieved through the use of many terminologies in which you understand. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm kind of rushing it. Team building is number one. Next one. Yeah, that's right. This right here. This one right there. Yeah. There we go. I'm sorry. This is new to me. Team building is very, very important. Children need team building more today than even in our past. Has shown to help students develop a positive sense of self-sufficiency, purpose, and awareness. Positive affirmation, material used, help build students' awareness of their strengths and helps to develop positive communication with other students and leaders. This is shown to be a 90% turnaround in students in the school in just a 6-month period. Okay. Arts and craft music, it works. My goal is to encourage each student to reach out, embrace their feelings, and express it through arts/craft and music while sharing time with each other and speaking positive, meaningful words with others, including principal, teachers, and staff. These achievements help provide students with, one, positive motivation, which increases their cognitive processes as they learn to pay attention to what they are learning from their time spent on task. Anti-bullying. Students learn to work with each other, sharing time, compliments, and speaking positive, meaningful words to each other, students whom they do not even know. Next. Focusing on the arts. Students developing positive behavior and at the same time having fun. As you see the chart in front of you, this is over a 6-month period of time. I started in November. It was just a 2-week period just to see how it was going to work. Christmas came, and at the end of the holidays, they came and grabbed me. "You're back!" I was shocked. I did not expect that. They returned more and more. I had 300 students lined up at a lunch hour period Middle school, 75%. Elementary school were almost 90% of the students, more and more. As you know, am I over?
She
Oh.
said time.
Oh, time, I'm sorry. Could I just, one more minute, please? It takes a village to raise a child. You know that. Miss Bridget Shaw, here, she delivers the music. It is a person, please. Miss Shaw, would you turn the music on? She's going to show us what the music aspect of it is. And this is just sharing the students. They come, they participate. Middle school students, they want to sit down, listen, because they're between adult and childhood. The music she plays shows you how the children come out. They expect her, they ask for her, they wait patiently for her. Just as simple as the music.
So Bridget, if you could do it in less than a minute, we appreciate it. Okay. Okay, could I get 3 of the young people, please go down? Dr. Flores, Dr. Wyatt, Ms. Rogers.
We were children once, and this is what they enjoy the most.
Oh, Mr. Gallo, you can join them.
Through the music,
Ms. Medina.
the elementary school children line up
Yeah.
steadily.
In case a couple,
Focus on
in case a couple of them pass out, we'll have backup.
said 3, they say what?
While they're doing the crafts, they're dancing, we're playing music, and they enjoy it. They look forward to coming to the school because we're playing music during the lunchtime. Any place else has a DJ, you know what they're paying for a DJ. We come to the school and we enjoy it with the students, so I want to show you what we're doing. I love to dance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
While you're walking back, if there's any questions before we leave regarding the program or our next steps? Any questions?
Well, if you need to hire any
Can we-
dancers, you don't have to.
I'm
go
sorry,
far.
they all got 3 X's. They're X, goodbye.
I think somebody's going to be on Facebook.
In 10 seconds.
Dr. Hill? Can I say one thing?
I don't know, Mr. Tillman. I'm not trusting you much tonight, but yes, go right ahead.
You know, you mentioned the wash machine, and we did have a program that they're doing in some districts where they actually have wash machines at schools, and I think our district does have some wash machines. So if you can tell us some of the sites, I would like to hear about it, so maybe we can get some wash machines. And I think we should find ways to pay folks to come in and help wash the clothes, because I talked to some teachers, and they told me it's a big job having to, wash the clothes, but if we can make it available to the students, I think it'd be great. And I know, I talked to Dr. Volkmer about a clothes closet. I know they have one at Pacific. Are you aware of that?
No, well, because we have clothes closet over at the center.
At the New Hope Life
so.
Center.
So so if we need more clothes, we want to hear about that too.
Right. Well, even if you identify a laundromat that you might want to partner
with.
in the community, because, it might be somewhat embarrassing for the kids to come on campus to do that. But
agree.
if you were to partner possibly with a laundromat, and on a certain day, everyone knows with a card, they can go in and swipe it and use it. Just throwing out some suggestions, as you were mentioning.
Well-
We have other suggestions, only because when we're in the community, we see the need, and so we try to work with the family, so we'll be willing to give some
I
suggestions.
think those are very good ideas, and to give them, like tokens or something that they can reimburse and use, and also for soap and softener and all that
Right.
kind of
In
stuff.
a food pantry, partner with some churches and food pantries when it comes down to the food, because we also provide food sometimes when we go out, and that is a big need. Toward the end of the month, just before it's time for them to renew, getting some more money onto their cards to get food. Toward the 2 weeks, toward the end of the month. And then track and see exactly when it is that they're not coming to school. Is it the beginning, the 2 weeks of the month you notice they're coming in, then towards the last end of the month, they're not. Then some indicators there. So again, just some suggestions to take a look. Thank you if you
Thank you so much.
I just
Thank
wanted
you
to say thank you, guys. I had been over to Devalejo. I didn't get to participate, but I guess I got to participate tonight. But you guys are doing a great job. And Linda, hopefully you are interacting with Dr. Menares because you have been at the forefront of the mental health in the community. And I was just sharing with Dr. Flores as well when we were saying working together, part of this parent engagement plan, because I'll never forget what the coalition did over the last 3-4 years. I mean, I even worked with you for a year, going out into the community, and they did extensive outreach. And I'm talking about outreach in the hedges and the highways and places you wouldn't have imagined. They were in just parks, wherever there were people, but the goal, and they do a lot of work with Loma Linda, might I add, the goal was to reach African-American families and talk to them about mental health, which was a very touchy subject, but they reached thousands of people. So that model that they used and you guys worked along with Loma Linda, I definitely want to make sure that you are in collaboration and having that conversation, because that outreach effort is going to be needed, as well as you've talked about the suicide piece as well. And we just recently found out that there is a bill, and there were some things that we should be doing along the lines of suicide prevention that's mandated. So again, we want to make sure that you are involved, as well as all of those people that you recruited that already know how to go out and do this outreach. So
Thank you, Gwen. We really appreciate that. And we also want to, just for FYI, we also want to extend the opportunity in the future when we talk about the literacy rate being low among the African-American male. We want to outreach and possibly do some work in that area. Being that we're already in the community and working in the complexes, we would love to be able to be part of the project to make sure that families have access to the Chromebooks as well. So we would like to have that conversation as well.
And one more thing, Linda. What was the initiative that you got passed
To
regarding?
recognize the second week in February as African American Mental Health Week,
Right.
signed by the governor.
Great work.
That's great. I also wanted to thank you for coming, and you certainly have a pulse on all the needs. And those were the things that I was asking earlier, like, what is it that our parents need? What do our families need to be supported? And I hope you do, Dr. Monares, are in contact. And then I see Aldo out there as well. I don't know if you know Mr. Ramirez. Do you know him?
No,
He's
I
the
do not.
director of family engagement. And so, but I also wanted to comment on the music and the art. My daughter is an artist, and she's an art teacher at Arroyo High School. And I can attest to the growth and the love and self-confidence that the kids get from doing that. And Danny, I want you to know, just like your daughter's at Jones, when my daughter talks to me about when her kids are absent, she'll call home. I mean, she has like 100 or 200 and something, but she'll call home and say, where you been? Why aren't you here? And I go, how do you have time? Mom, I make time. And so she, all of us caring and working together, like you said, it takes a village. It certainly does. And art and music are just the joy of the heart. And that's what we need to bring joy to our kids.
I just want to make one statement. I noticed that you guys were working on early intervention strategies. This is a must in
Yes.
early intervention strategies. It's been lost, it's here, and keep it and make it grow, because it's your best ally to bring the students in a positive frame, more mental, positive
Right.
attitudes, behavior. Thank you very much.
I love to call it enrichment.
Yes.
It's enrichment,
It is
and
an
it's
enrichment
an enrichment that fills our hearts, and all of us need it. All of us need love. We need the arts. We need music.
The children do not just come for that. They
Yeah.
see you. They come, they cry on my shoulder.
Yeah.
They, at just a second, that's all. It's all these kids lined up, and they're patiently waiting
For a hug.
for this child to get comfort for 1 second, and then we move on.
Right.
And they request it more and more and more. You have a gold mine. Please introduce it. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much.
Thank you so much.
Next, the board welcomes Denisha Shackelford on the subject of Community Foundation Youth Grant Makers Program.
Well, good evening, distinguished board members and cabinet members. It's a pleasure to be here on this
Good
evening. My name is Denisha Shackelford, and I'm with the Community Foundation, and I'm here to introduce or kind of inform you about an amazing program we have called the Youth Grant Makers Program. And as I continue to babble on, I do want to show you a quick video about our program just to give you a quick snapshot of what we're doing here in the community. The Youth Grant Makers Program is a program geared for high school students here within the Riverside region, as well as we have a program in the San Bernardino region and Coachella Valley region. They start the program in September and we end in May, and within those 9 months we go over a college-based curriculum teaching them about philanthropy, and the whole goal of the program is basically instilling and cultivating youth in philanthropy, helping them or trying to inspire them to want to get involved in their community and give back.
We train them year-long in reviewing grants with understanding the nonprofit sector. They deliberate and they make recommendations back to our board as to who they feel should get a grant.
If it wasn't for the Youth Grant Makers getting me as a sophomore in high school, getting me involved in the community, understanding all that they have to offer for the youth here in Riverside, I really wouldn't be going down the same path, or at least have the same connections that I do now. I'm lucky enough to be an intern for City Hall with Mayor Rusty Bailey. I'm one of his interns in the office up there. So I really do owe a lot to them in the sense of where my future is going now.
My name is Kathleen Sawa, and I am currently serving on the board of directors for the Community Foundation. I was part of the inaugural class of the Youth Grant Makers. It really helped shape what I saw myself doing with my future. Exposing the younger generation to the process of grant making and giving back to our community is so crucial in the shaping of our future leaders, and it really is truly an honor that a program like this exists in Riverside and San Bernardino counties.
At the end of our program, we have a recognition ceremony where we're able to showcase the youth that are involved in the program, as well as say thank you to the nonprofits that are doing the work, and we have a big check that we present to those that were chosen for the grant opportunity, and it also gives them an opportunity to say thank you to the Youth Grant Makers for allowing them to do the work and continue the work on.
The beauty of the Youth Grant Makers Fund, and at least as a recipient of it, is you have these freshmen through seniors that are giving up their time to look through grants, to weigh in what are the needs of kids, and for them to say that Big Brothers Big Sisters mentoring model, that we do peer-to-peer mentoring, having high school students mentor at-risk elementary school students, is something that they want to see and they want to see more of and allow us to expand. Was just, it's a humbling to know that they see in our vision and that we can continue to move forward together and see that mentoring really does change lives. I'm really excited about the Community Foundation's investment in the next generation, empowering youth who will be our philanthropists in years to come, and really instilling that dream and vision, and how do we donate and serve and give well and give to our community, and starting with youth and allowing them to be stakeholders in it, as well as to even serve on their board of directors, I think is a great statement to the future of our region of how are we building philanthropists, and I think they've taken a great step forward to get us in the right direction.
It's important to raise funding for our Youth Grant Makers program because they are the future. I don't see it as a funding, I see it as an investment. You're investing money within a program that's going to be lifelong residuals forever. We have some champion donors that continuously give to this program, and we thank you so much for your support. And without you, I don't think we would still be here 8+ years later. Your financial support is so key to this program, and we look forward to being around here many, many, many more years to come. So as you can see, we've been here for a little while. We launched in Riverside in 2009, and we actually launched our program here in San Bernardino in 2014. And since that time, during our grant making process, we have actually granted over $25,000 back into the community through our Youth Grant Makers program to various programs that target youth programs and youth issues. For example, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Project Fighting Chance, and Young Visionaries Youth Academy, just to name a few. So we are truly proud of this program. It gives the kids an opportunity to be in touch with their community, to give them a voice, to give them a say-so on what's going on, a tangible say-so as far as financially giving back of their time. We have site visits. We do community service. We also have a senior charity of choice for those seniors that complete the program. They're actually able to give back into the community, and most of those funds usually go towards their schools, the programs that they've been involved in. So the schools are actually getting that money back. So we're truly proud of this program. We would love to have the support of the district as far as connecting with our administrators and helping with the recruiting efforts. I do have some newsletters here as well as cards, so if you have any further information or would like any further information, I am available. I had to squeeze that in.
Thank you so much.
So can I?
Ms. Rogers.
I just want to say, first of all, thank you, Denisha, for coming. I had touted this information last board meeting, and I'm so appreciative of you coming. It is something, I guess we will pass the information on, or who she give it, so we can definitely get in contact, because I think this program is great. It's another pathway. It's another opportunity for our students to build on their skill sets that they have in philanthropy, things that we normally haven't been talking a lot about. My sons had an opportunity to go through the program, and I am very grateful for it. So I'm looking forward to this partnership and seeing what we need to do to make it happen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Flores?
Yes, I want to thank you also for, that was amazing. I think it's wonderful that you are investing in our youth and for giving back and philanthropy. Can you clarify what exactly you need and from us in terms of a partnership, and what you envision our partnership to be?
Sure, just basically outreach into the high schools, making that connection with the counselors and the principals, informing them, and just letting them know about our program and assisting with recruitment. So that's just the touch I need in regards to that. This program had, as far as my other programs, we had 6 members total in the program compared to my Riverside program that had 36, and compared to my Coachella Valley program that had 25.
Wonderful.
So I know San Bernardino is a robust, thriving region, and we definitely want that representation, and we do have the funding there for the donors and the granting purposes. We just need the students, and once they're there, it's awesome.
I want to ask Dr. Volkemer. Dr. Volkemer, who would she connect with so that it can become concrete?
Yes.
And not just,
Absolutely.
If I'm hearing you correctly, it sounds to me like it would work through our counselors perhaps.
Yes.
And that would be Roseanne Beaumontry through Dr. Menars's office. That's the notation I made, at least for now. But we'll talk about it. That may not be the best spot to land on, but that'll be our initial take on it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So do you know how to get a hold of
I'm
Dr.
gonna
Monitis?
Give her my business card.
Okay, all right.
We're going to make that happen.
Okay, good. Right.
Any other questions, concerns?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Next, the board welcomes Heather Estrich on the subject of LCAP and safe routes to schools.
And good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Our member, Rochelle Capozio, had some concerns about, you're talking about attendance, and maybe if they're walking to school, maybe there's something on their route that's bothering them. Maybe it might be people bothering on them on the way to school. Maybe it's a traffic issue, but maybe look into that. And thank you.
Thank you.
And those are all the comments we have. Dr. Hill?
Thank you. Session 5.0, reports and comments. 5.1, report by San Bernardino Teachers Association. No report. Thank you. Report by California School Employees Association. No report. Report by Communications Workers of America. Thank you, Mr. Fletcher.
Good evening, Board. My name is Ron Fletcher, Area VP for the Communication Workers representing subs. I want to start off with just saying that I know I'll be done in less than 5 minutes. But Mr. Tillman, you and I are both accountants, and we both are going to learn the new math that they were talking about earlier, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, I know it's that way. I just, couple of things. On your action item, number 7, you have 3 through 6. These are retired teachers that Dr. Wiseman wants to put in the substitute pool. These are people that obviously are very much in love with the children because they just retired and they can't even be in retirement for 180 days. They got to come back and work with the students. So I'm very much looking forward to you okaying their emergency 180 day. On July 18th and 19th, we have 330 substitutes going into the PDC. I hope that a few of you stop by and say hello because this is the onboarding training that you have been behind 100%. And this is our first meeting, and we hope to have over 300 show up. And then the next time will be during Thanksgiving week, and then after Christmas, well, right before Christmas, and then in March. So this is all shows.
Could you repeat the date, Ron?
Oh, the dates. Okay, July 18th and 19th is the first one, which is just, a couple weeks. November, I think it's the 21st and 22nd. December, I don't recall the dates right now, but they're right after school's out. And this is really great that Dr. Wiseman's been working this way because this gives substitutes a couple extra days where they can earn just a little bit more money. And I really appreciate that much. And it is great being here. I wasn't here in June because my meeting is on the last Tuesday of the month, and that's when you guys had your meeting. So I did have a couple of substitutes come and witness what you said and what you did. But I am enjoying the play amongst the board members and stuff. And Dr. Hill, you got to trust Mr. Tillman. He's been around a long time.
I think 20 years.
All right. That's
22.
all.
22. Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. I really do trust him. All right, 5.4, report by San Bernardino School Police Officers Association. No report. Report by San Bernardino School Managers. No report. Comments by board members. No. Oh. Dr. Flores.
Yes, I just wanted, we have it on our website, but I wanted to announce that there's going to be groceries, free grocery food distribution this coming Sunday, July 26th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at Indian Springs High School by the Sioux Chew Mobile Food Pantry, and also on July 17th from 12 noon to 1:30 p.m. at Jones. So it's on our website, so I don't know if do we send out telephone notices, or do we do that?
And send out flyers.
We do send out flyers, so we did all of that already? Oh, we did that already, okay, great. Thank you so much for doing that. I'd like to thank Dr. Wiseman for the clarification for the attendance verifiers and so forth. I appreciated that. Thank you very much. Very timely. I also, two more things. You know, we've, since I was elected on the board, and Danny are the oldest, you guys don't know this, but Alcalde and Fay have been our lobbyists, our lawyers in DC, and they're very well connected, very, very well connected in DC. And we, you know, they're connected to all, just not just the legislators. And I think, Dr. Volkemer, you've dealt with them quite a bit throughout the years, correct? Yes. Go ahead. Do you want to say something?
I was just going to confirm that I have. Yes.
Right. And
We've gone on visits to DC, and
right.
they've given us.
And I've gone to certain times, and we've gotten grants. And I know that Ms. Ontiveros will be going out for more government, federal government grants. They would be really good connection. I would like us to consider, you know, continuing their contract. It's $45,000, I believe. So I would like us to put that on the agenda if we have consensus from the board.
Sure, is there consensus? I think it's 57,000.
Yeah, and I would just add a data point that we should perhaps effectively manage a statement of work and expectations for it, because
Right.
I agree with you, they're a valuable resource.
Right.
But if we don't exercise them, it doesn't become a valuable resource.
Right. I agree with you.
So
Yeah.
so with consensus, then we can make this an,
Right, with specifications of what our expectations are. Yes, okay.
now, would you want this, or is it the consensus to have this on the next board meeting, which is next Tuesday, or the first Tuesday in August? I don't know how much time.
What, do you need,
Well, I will turn my microphone on. I think we can get it done on August 1st.
August
I don't
1st,
know that we
okay.
can get it done for next Tuesday
Right,
from
right.
tonight.
But for August 1st, okay, great, thank you. And then I just wanted to say, I'm not going to be here next Tuesday. I'm going to the Literacies for All Summer Conference from the National Council of Teachers of English in Tucson, Arizona. And so I won't be here. I'll miss you guys. And I'll think about you during the time that you're here. But I just wanted to let you know that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rogers?
Thank you, Dr. Hill. So I'm going to pass this, but I know one of my favorite books when I had mentioned a while back that I was made aware that during our book orders or book purchases, we had some discrepancies with some of our books. And here's one of the books, so I want all of the board members to see it, how the pages are upside down, how there's several pages missing. So I'll pass that around so you can see, and I hope that we can get that fixed as we are preparing to go into the next school year. But you'll see where the numbers switch over. And then, Dr. Hill, I'm going to pass this down to you. On a very, very, very cold night, there was a picture taken of us, so that's for you. And then, one of the major comments that I had was to get some clarity on our board top 10. You're welcome. I know that it was very cold that night, too, but they won. The board top 10, I just wanted to get some clarity on it. I noticed that and I know we don't get it all the time because we have a reduced meeting, but on the last time we had it, I noticed that some of the items had been moved around. So what I'm thinking happens is once we get a board correspondence, then it drops off. But that's not the way that I kind of interpret it. My concern was if we're looking at these as board top 10, then they go away or we get updates on them as it's progress, not moved off. Otherwise, we don't see it again, and I don't know where exactly, and I guess Dr. Volkemer, you would be taking notes on this, where exactly it will fall again, because for one, I know we had been discussing the African American Student Achievement Initiative. It was one, but now the parent engagement strategic plan is now one. But my question is just how this really works. Do we know? Because what never falls off or generally stays are follow-up. So we get follow-up, so that's kind of like a board correspondence. But on the top 10, it moves around just because we get a note a BC that more or less says we're working on it or about to work on it. But to me, I don't see how that means anything. It just drops off and goes away. And then we rotate this around, but yet we still have something that says follow-up. So we're treating the top 10 like the follow-up, and that's not my understanding. So is there?
So I heard two different things. The first thing I heard was that it may be a good thing to have this agendized each time, so that you can be looking at it
Right, and then
instead of
even
once
with,
a month.
right, even if we have quarterly updates on there,
Right.
but I don't see how an item would move off the top,
Right.
categorized as the top 10, it would move off because we got a BC, so where's the follow-up, what are we doing? And it's no longer a top 10 anymore.
So how we treat this in relation to the follow-up, remember that all of the top 10 items come from the follow-up. When you prioritize, when we ask you to prioritize, you prioritize from this list to get them onto the top 10. And here's the history.
Okay.
At one time, there were over 100 items on the follow-up list. And it was like, where do we even begin? And so the board came up with the idea of having the top 10, to say, these are the ones we really want you to focus on first. Now, some of the follow-ups are very easy, and it's quick, and you can get them done.
That's what I said, like, for example, African American Student Achievement Initiative, a BC, then where does it go? From there.
Okay. So what we could do, if this would help, is when we think it's complete, rather than take it off the list, we could leave it on the list and put complete.
Right.
Then you can see it and say, I'm not sure it's complete yet.
Right.
I agree, yeah, it's
Plus,
complete, and then the
this
next time
is
we would
good,
take it off.
Quarterly updates, because it's the progress, a BC doesn't say anything happened yet.
Correct.
But if we have this,
Okay.
like this particular one is
Right.
there, or all of them are like that, I think we can move along a little bit better. So
Okay.
that's my recommendation to the board, to not just have a follow-up move over to a top 10, to move over to just a letter
Okay.
of an update, but not really an update. I mean, that's just not how I saw it,
Okay. I think I understand what you're asking.
what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'll give
thank
that
you.
back to you, because I have a copy.
And then, okay. And then the last thing, I was at one of our legislators, and I think this was very good. I don't even, the cameras are on. You probably can't see it. But one of our legislators did give some of our community members some information, and I'll just share what it says here. It says what to do if confronted by immigration officials, and it just lists some kind of basic things. And I think sometimes this is pretty beneficial to have, so you know what to do or what steps you can take. But it says you do not have to let officials in your home unless they present a warrant that specifically has your name on it and signed by a judge. Do not sign any documents. You have the right to remain silent if you do not have any immigration documents. Ask to speak to an attorney. You do not have to answer questions about your birthplace, and do not falsify documents to lie about your citizenship status. So this is something that, as I said, some of our local, and it's very, I love things that are small and, here, not overwhelming, and it's in both English and Spanish. And this was put out by Senator Leiva's office.
Oh, that's great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Medina?
Yes, I wanted to talk about I know we spoke about a little bit about it, special ed, and in this case, I want to find out in regards to the class sizes, what is the minimum class, or how many students are, or the maximum students are for each special ed class? And I guess it depends if it's an elementary school, middle school, and high school, right?
It actually depends on the actual type of classroom that you're sitting in.
Okay.
So
So then I guess the next question would be how many students are actually in classrooms that have exceeded that number?
I can get you, and I'm going to assume you want last year's, right? Or I think maybe what you're asking about, Ms. Medina, is about caseload and how many students are on caseload.
Well, in the classroom
and who's
itself.
exceeded.
In the classroom in itself. And the reason why I'm asking is because I know that when you look at different districts and the class sizes are a lot less than what our schools look like. And I speak with special ed teachers and in different areas, and they'll say, well, San Bernardino has a lot of kids, and they're great teachers, and how can we recruit more teachers if the class sizes here are high compared to other districts? And then also looking at how many students There might be too many students in a certain classroom, and that makes the workload for the teachers, and if they don't have the instructional aid or they have no supports, I'm just trying to find out what we can try to do to help alleviate that and try to recruit, and then, of course, try to help our students in this area.
Right, absolutely. So we can get you by just a general overall, if you're in an SDC setting, what's the average class size? What's our caseload for our speech? What's our caseload for our psychologists, so that you have an idea? If I remember correctly, and I don't want to say it inaccurately, I think the state puts out guidelines. They're not required, but they're guidelines for SDC where they say around 14 students.
Okay.
Whereas for an RSP caseload, because RSP is different, they sit in a general ed setting, that is 28.
Okay.
So there are some variations, and then if you're in an ED class, that's going to look different than a basic SDC. But we can get that for you in a BC.
Okay, please, thank you. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Gallo.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Hill. And I want to report on a special education initiative that we basically started just a few weeks ago, and Dr. Wiseman has been heading this up, and I know Rachel Moneras has put some leadership to this as well with the special education group, and that is to initiate a pilot program to actually have some of our special education students participate in a summer internship within the district. And I think 6 or 7 students are going to be beginning that, like a couple weeks, internship program within the district, starting Monday and going through like the end of July. And can you maybe expound on that a little bit, Dr. Wiseman?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate Mr. Gallo's vision with this. We sat down and we were talking about just some opportunities for some of our special education students in regards to getting them into the workplace. And we do have some programs within the district to where we have student workers, and those are our high school students. We have students that are working in human resources, student services. They're all over the school district. But what we did is we targeted some special education students that would really thrive in this type of environment. And we worked with some teachers. I want to thank Mr. Michael Dominguez in regards to his leadership and working with the families and working with the teachers, as well as Dr. Menares. But we're set to have them start on Monday as a pilot, and we plan to grow this program into next school year as well as each and every summer following.
Great, thank you. That's all I had.
Okay,
Dr. Hill.
thank you, Mr. Gallo. Mr. Tillman?
Yes, I've gone around and saw a lot of the high schools and see the track and the field, and I haven't talked to Mrs. Christakis about this, but I know some of them have, I'm sure all of them have a timeline of when they're going to get completed, and I was told like Cajones is real close. I mean, the completion date is like 5 days past their first game. Is there any way they can encourage them to speed up the completion date? Appreciate it. And then if we could just get a status on the completion date for all the sites, it'd be good to know. But it looks great that the work's being done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I address that with Mr. Tillman's?
Dr. Wyatt, and then Dr. Flores.
In regards to what Mr. Tillman was saying, I was wondering, with that plan, with the remodeling of our sports complex, will that include the funds that we allocated for the fields as well? Because I know that's been a question from staff and community and students is, the remodel's looking great, we're really excited about it, but will the field also be done concurrently?
Dr. White, are you talking about the artificial turf?
Yes, sir.
Football fields? That is not part of this project. Right. You would have to allocate, remember we had an initial discussion about that about a month or almost 2 months ago now. We'll be bringing back a recommendation to you in late August after we get the new, hopefully late August, when we get the new assessed values from the community real estate rolls, to be able to let you prioritize the number of different projects you've expressed interest in, one of which is including the football fields. But that's not part of this project because we don't have the funding for it at this point. But it could come, depending on what the board decides, out of the next bond issuance.
And something
That's
what we need to know.
And something we could do for because all of them got new turf. So, or sod.
That's correct.
So if we can bring in like some experts to go and analyze the fields that having problems because they put the wrong grass in, whatever, maybe they can double seed and plant some grass now before the season starts. It's possible.
Yeah.
Actually, Mr. Tillman, our grounds crews have been working in collaboration with the official grounds crews of the 66er Stadium.
There you go.
good.
They've been coming over and saying, how do you keep a field nice throughout the year, even in the off-season, when it
Right.
gets lots and lots and lots of, wear and that type of thing. So I know our folks have been working in conjunction with them.
Can you give us a status of all of that, of where we're at with all the different fields and what we have?
Yeah, that's what Mr. Tillman.
And one other resource too, I know the grounds person at San Bernardino Golf Course, he actually has students that come in from UC Riverside and Cal Poly Pomona, and he does train about the different types of grass and how to maintain the grass. You wouldn't know that, but if you drive by there right now, because their
Yeah,
grass is horrible right now.
What's left of it?
But they lost a pump, so they're supposed to be bringing it back. But the guy is good at
I would like to know the
Grass.
status also of the soccer fields, where we're at with all the soccer fields, so that they're ready to go as well. And the other, I forgot, and is Linda still here, Ms. Bardier? I wanted to thank you and your staff for the new website. Have you guys gone on to see the website? It looks great. You deserve, I'm so happy. I know it took a long time, but it's really beautiful. You to be commended.
Thank you.
That's it?
Well, I actually asked Linda to say something about it under superintendent's comments, so we can wait or do it now, either
If
way.
we could, because I don't think, Dr. White, had you finished? Okay. Yeah, I just have one thing to say. Just want to give congratulations to the two young men from Del Viejo who are #1 champions in the boxing field. And as we talk about our kids and what they can and do, many times we just have to give them the right things to make them successful. And I don't know about the second young man, but Terry is one who has gone from D's and F's to A's and B's because he has gotten involved and he's doing those types of things. So I just want to congratulate Ian Franklin and the work he has done with Project Chance and taking those kids back to West Virginia. And he took 3 kids back, 2 from Del Viejo, 1 was from Rialto. So the young man from Rialto and not Terry, but the other young man from Del Viejo, they are both #1 in the nation. So just want to say congratulations. Okay. Yeah.
Just a question on the website. Is there a tab for the board on the mobile part?
Yes, there is a tab for the school board. I think if you're looking at the mobile, you just kind of keep scrolling down. It is.
It's on Facebook.
Oh.
It's a lot harder to find. I was trying to look for the
I think you
profile.
guys should put a tab I think you should put a tab at the top.
And we absolutely can. The partnership that we have with School Messenger, they'll allow us to make tweaks like that. And we're kind of hoping to spend this month of July kind of cleaning it up and tweaking it and getting it just right for the first day of school.
I think where it says parents, students, staff.
I see what
see
Mr.
a
Tillman is
tab
saying.
that
You
says
should put a
board.
tab that says board. Yeah.
Board, got it.
Right?
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. You're forgiven for not having the math answer. Dr. Bokemer?
Thank you, Dr. Hill. It's kind of anticlimactic now, but you may have heard that we have a new website. So I asked Ms. Bardier to give you just a little bit of information that perhaps she hasn't given you already, so.
What I really wanted to do on behalf of the superintendent is just thank the Board of Education for your support in getting us the funding to update and get a new website. So as I mentioned, we're going to be tweaking it this month in preparation for our big August 1st launch party. And we are working collaboratively with School Messenger and the Google Play Store and the Apple, the App Store, because that's one last hurdle, is getting them to upload our app so parents can log on and have that available for the start of the school year. So we're working feverishly, but we are very optimistic.
Thank you, Linda. And as has been said, we know this is a huge effort. We want to thank you and your team for bringing us up to date with our website and mobile apps and all the latest and greatest with social media. So thank you so much for that. Quick congratulations to Bingwang Elementary School for being selected as a mini grant recipient from Loma Linda University Health's Community Health Development Initiative. They're going to receive funding to cover the purchase of equipment for a new eye care career exploration lab. And you know they have the engineering lab as well, where students in primary grades will explore a variety of healthcare options. Congratulations to Ryan Rainbolt and his staff for their leadership in making that happen. Want to give a quick reminder to the board that starting tomorrow, Cabinet will be at our summer management conference, and then Thursday, the rest of the managers will come in La Quinta. We hope that you've all gotten that message. I know at least a couple of you are planning on attending. We hope that you will all be able to be in attendance as much as you possibly can. That's our intensive time in the summer for our entire management team, nearly 300 people. So we'll be out in the desert sweating a lot. Yeah, it's 100 plus out there. So, and then the last thing that I have is Dr. Marsden. You may have read the article, probably had a chance to read the article regarding LCFF funding called "Is California's Investment in Needy Kids Paying Off? Few Signs Yet That Achievement Gap is Closing." Dr. Marsden has prepared a response to that article that appeared in a Bakersfield area newspaper. And our team is requesting your feedback before we submit the final version. You did receive that in board correspondence. I don't know if you've had a chance to provide any feedback through Carla, or you want to share any now, or if you're prepared to do that. But he does want to make sure that we get your voice involved in that as much as possible before he sends it out. So I don't know if any of you have any feedback at this time.
And how much time do we have to get this to you?
Carla, do we have Carla's smiling. See that smile? That means we're past the deadline already, yeah.
Okay.
He was hoping to send it out tomorrow, is that correct, to the PIO? So if you could, if you've had a chance to look that over and maybe just, looks like we're gonna finish fairly early tonight, hopefully, so if you could spend a few minutes looking that over and getting any feedback to Carla that you can give us, that would be much appreciated. And those are all my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Board, we'll move into the consent calendar.
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded. Anything to be pulled?
Let's move forward.
Beg your pardon? No, we aren't voting yet. I have a question of the deputy. Are you pulling six?
No, you just need to recuse yourself.
I was thinking this is the one we went over today. This is the one we went over before. I need to pull 6.2. And with that, Abigail, if you would take over the vote. I won't leave the room because before I get out, you will have voted. And
Okay, we will go ahead and move forward.
I'll just close my
So
ears.
then, is there a motion to approve?
It's been moved and second.
Okay, now let's vote. Now, let's go to 6.2.
Move to approve.
Any discussion? Okay, let's vote. Okay, motion passes.
Thank you. Let's move to 7.0, action item on page 11. 7.1, personnel report.
As presented, Dr. Hill.
So moved.
Second.
Let's vote. 7.2,
You can
Dr.
vote
Hill?
now, Dr. Hill.
You didn't vote, Dr. Hill?
Cool.
yes, my vote's yes. Thank you. Thank you. 7.2, conditionally approve the entrepreneur charter petition and adopt board resolution effectuating that action.
Motion?
So move.
Second?
Been moved and properly second. Let's vote. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Okay, thank you. Motion carried. 7.3, San Bernardino City Unified School District Resolution for exemption to the separation from service requirement pursuant to Section 24214.5 or 26812 of the Educational Code. Dana Chapman?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Let's vote. Thank you. 7.4, San Bernardino City Unified School District Resolution for exemption to the separation from service requirement pursuant to Section 24214.5 or 26812 of the Education Code. Dennis Nelany. It's been moved and properly second. Let's vote. Thank you. 7.5, San Bernardino City Unified School District Resolution for exemption to the separation from service requirement pursuant to Section 24214.5 or 26812 of the Education Code. Carol Waitman. It's been moved and properly second. Let's vote. Seven point six, San Bernardino City Unified School District Resolution for exemption to the separation from service requirement pursuant to Section 24214.5 or 26812 of the Educational Code. Linda Williams. It's been moved and properly second. Let's vote. Okay, thank you. 8.0, we are going into closed session, and we will report out. So at this time, for those of you who are leaving before we come back, we want to say have a good weekend, a good week, and know that we will have our next school board meeting next Tuesday, the 18th, back-to-back meetings at 5:30. So with that, I just want to say thank you for coming out, and board and cabinet, thank you. This meeting is closed. We're returning from closed session and doing a report out. SS-16-17-22. Be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the settlement authority number SS-16-17-22 in the amount of $11,000. Be it further resolved that the Board of Education authorizes Deborah Love, Purchasing Director, to sign any related documents.
So move.
It's been moved and properly second. Let's vote. Thank you. And this meeting is now adjourned. Is there a motion?
Move to adjourn.
All right. We won't ask for a vote.
Good night.
Thank you.
You got somebody asking, what am I doing in this picture?